all the time, and I couldn't make a friend to save my life. But I was also a good little Christian girl, and I reasoned that if God had brought me to a difficult place, then he probably wanted me to try and help make that place better. And so I did a lot of community service projects around town. And one of them brought me to our local elementary school, where I witnessed something that disturbed me deeply then and disturbs me deeply now. So I walk in to where the principal's office is, and lined up outside the principal's office are a bunch of coloring pages. And the subject matter is what you'd expect from a bunch of elementary school students. There's mermaids, fairies, dragons, Jungle Book characters. But as I get closer, I realize something else is going on. Because at the bottom of every single coloring page, the children had been required to write a response to their artwork. And they all ran along the same lines. Under the dragon, dragons don't exist. Under the fairy, fairies aren't real. There's no such thing as mermaids. Animals don't sing and dance. It was so very wrong. But it was also so very unoriginal. This is the Nerd Culture Ministry Summit, after all, and we're well acquainted with this kind of attitude. Percy Jackson is juvenile literature. Ticket to Ride is a waste of time. Mario Kart is for kids. Your fun is wrong. With rare exceptions, we live in an anti-fun society, which is a shame, because a world without fun is a world without friends. The good news I have for you today, though, is that fun can help build community, but that is especially good for y'all in what y'all do, because where you are situated in your ministry, you are strategically placed to see God do exactly that and to participate in him doing exactly that. So let's start with some definitions. What is fun? When Jacqueline says fun, what does she mean? Well, in life, there are two kinds of things that we do. There's the stuff that we do because we want the stuff that thing can get us, and there are the things that we do because we want to. I go to work 40 hours a week because I want income and health insurance, and I want to see a mission I believe in move forward. I play D&D once a week because I want to. In his book, Leisure, the Basis of Culture, Joseph Piper divides these two categories under the labels of the servile arts and the liberal arts, respectively. I go to work because it serves a purpose, a good, a noble, a helpful purpose. It's a servile art. I go to D&D because I want to. It's a liberal art. I do it for free, as it were. When I say fun, what I mean are these liberal arts category of things, the stuff we do because we want to, not for any extrinsic benefit, but because it's worth doing and desirable to do for itself. But to get a clear idea of why fun is important, we need to not just talk about philosophically what it is, but also how it works. And I would suggest that fun works in a two-beat rhythm. There is a positive psychologist by the name of Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi who spent his career studying what he called optimal experience. And these are the moments in life that are the most rewarding, the most enjoyable, the most desirable, the most fun. And he found something interesting that you gamers will not actually find very surprising. Here's what he says. Contrary to what we usually believe, moments like these usually occur when a person's body or mind is stretched to its limits in a voluntary effort to accomplish something difficult and worthwhile. He called this state of mind flow, and he characterized it as the sweet spot between boredom and anxiety. When a challenge meets our abilities, pushes those abilities to their uttermost, but doesn't exceed our abilities, we experience a pleasurable state of mind called flow. If the challenge is too high, we become anxious. If the challenge is too low, we become bored. But when that challenge meets what we bring to the table, but pushes us for everything we've got, we enjoy ourselves in a state of flow. This is the sciencey reason why games are fun. Games provide flow opportunities. When you sit down to play Magic the Gathering, you're trying to overcome the incredibly complex challenge of, okay, how do I get the right lands in play to get the right type and amount of mana available to cast the right creatures, to make the right attacks, to reduce my opponent to 0 hit points before they do the same to me. That's a complex challenge. It's enjoyable to overcome that challenge. Ditto for Mario Kart. When you play Mario Kart, you're trying to overcome the challenge of how do I get my vehicle through this obstacle course before my opponent. Now, you could play Magic with a professional Magic player, and that would be cool. You probably wouldn't experience a lot of flow, though, because they'd beat you in 2 moves, and the game would be over. It'd be too hard. The challenge would be too steep. Likewise, you could play Mario Kart with your newborn, and that would be funny. But you probably wouldn't experience a ton of flow, because you'd zip your car through the course, you'd win, while they're still trying to figure out how opposable thumbs work. So, flow is one kind of fun that we have. Flow is the kind of fun we have when we're playing games, climbing a mountain, going on a hike. But there is another kind of fun that is also enjoyable, that is a liberal art in that we enjoy it intrinsically, but it's not flow. Csikszentmihalyi called this pleasure. Here's what he says. Pleasure is a feeling of contentment one achieves whenever information in consciousness says that expectations set by biological programs or social conditioning have been met. Pleasure, you're hungry, you eat some food, you feel pleasure. You're lonely, you hang out with some friends, you feel pleasure. Pleasure is what we experience when our bodies and minds get the things we need to maintain balance, to maintain homeostasis in the brain. If you think of flow as a pouring out of energy, you can think of pleasure as a drinking in of energy. For instance, I really like baking. I enjoy the challenge of baking cakes. I like the whole process of figuring out textures and flavors and colors and assembling the cake and decorating the cake. That's a flow experience for me. I then experience pleasure when I eat it. Now, Csikszentmihalyi emphasizes flow as primary. To Csikszentmihalyi, optimal experience is flow. However, even he admits a healthy, holistically healthy human being will exist in a rhythm of pleasure and flow, of pouring out and of drinking in, of giving and receiving, if you will. So we've talked about what fun is philosophically. It's the liberal arts, the things we do because we want to. We've talked about how fun works psychologically, flow and pleasure, giving, receiving. What does any of that mean theologically? Well, I would suggest when you look at Genesis 1 and 2, you see this same rhythm of pleasure and flow. Here's what Genesis says in chapter 1, verses 26 through 28. Then God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion." So God created man in his image. In the image of God he created him. Male and female he created them. And God blessed them. And God said to them, "Be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the heavens, and over everything that moves along the earth." This will sound familiar to y'all who were here for York Moore's talk yesterday. This is what theologians often call the cultural mandate or the creation mandate. It's the moment in history and in Scripture whenever humans are granted stewardship of the earth. We are granted dominion over the earth the way a gardener has dominion over a garden, not the way a tyrant has dominion over a totalitarian government. We're meant to cultivate it, to care for it, to creatively engage with it. Now, that definitely includes ecological care of the physical environment, but it's not limited to that. Yes, this, in addition, it includes all the creative work of humanity. Again, this will sound familiar to you after listening to York's talk. It includes all our creative engagement with creation. In their book, Every Good Endeavor, Timothy Keller and Catherine Leary Alsdorf say it this way: "The pattern for all work is creative and assertive. It is rearranging the raw material of God's creation in such a way that it helps the world in general and people in particular thrive and flourish." So whether you're designing a game or cooking a meal, or weeding a garden, or finding the cure for cancer, wherever you're creatively engaging with the world in a way that rearranges its raw materials and creates something new that blesses others, you're fulfilling the cultural mandate. You are imaging God's image. You are fulfilling your dominion over the earth. Here's what I think, though. I think that the creation mandate is a flow opportunity, because it is the call to dominion, to have dominion, is a challenge in the same way an invitation to play Minecraft is a challenge. Think about it. Even in a sinless, perfect world, we would have had to stretch our bodies and minds to their limits to overcome this challenge. Farming takes work. It's hard, even when everything goes according to plan. Case in point, every cozy farm sim you've ever played. We really shouldn't be surprised by the success of Stardew Valley. We shouldn't be surprised by the results of Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi's research. Of course we enjoy flow. Flow is what we're made for, to joyfully give good, true, and beautiful gifts to others, to the world around us. But here's the thing, in the context of this passage, flow should not be an aimless pouring out of energy. It should be a specific pouring out of energy, not rearranging these raw materials randomly, or to serve ourselves, but to serve others, to help others thrive and flourish. Giving fun, if you will, is what happens when we add something true, good, and beautiful to the world, whether that's the cure for cancer, or a completed puzzle, or a climbed mountain, or a new painting. Again, of course we enjoy flow. It's what we were made for, to joyfully give good, true, and beautiful gifts to the world. But it's not all we were made for, because the Genesis account goes on, Genesis 2:2. And on the seventh day, God finished his work that he had done, and he rested on the seventh day from all the work that he had done. This is the passage of Scripture that the rest of Scripture points back to in talking about the Sabbath. Here's what Exodus says. The seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. You must not do any work, for the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea, and everything in them in 6 days, and he rested on the seventh day. The message is pretty clear. God worked, you should work. God rested, you should rest. Just as God rested, so should you rest. Fantastic. What does it even mean that God rested? Because he wasn't asleep in Genesis 2:2. He didn't lose consciousness. The universe only exists because he is constantly holding it in existence through his sustaining will. What was he doing in Genesis 2 that counts as rest, and how am I supposed to do it? I'm inclined to agree with commentators like David Atkinson on this point. Here's what he says. What is God's rest? Is it not delight in his creation? Is it not looking with joy on his world and saying, this is good? The 6+1 alternation of work and rest is a rhythm of engagement with the world in work, then thankful enjoyment of the world in worship. Worship is our offering back to God for him to enjoy our enjoyment of his world. See, for a long time, I thought, wrongly, that rest needed to happen so that work could be better. Oh, of course, God wants me to rest. I rest so that I can do better work and more work. Here's the problem with that. Every time I sat down to have a pint of Ben & Jerry's and watch The Mandalorian, I had a mental image of God standing over me with a stopwatch saying, all right, you got 43 minutes and 52 seconds, and then you better be back at it. Go. It wasn't very relaxing, it wasn't very restful, and it frankly wasn't a lot of fun. I think a more biblical image of rest is imagine yourself walking into an art museum where every piece in the museum was handmade by God. And as you wander the halls and look at every piece, he is hovering over your shoulder the whole time going, do you like it? What do you think of this one? What if I did this one in blue instead of orange? What if this was a sculpture instead of a painting? Do you like it? Worship is our offering back to God for him to enjoy our enjoyment of his world. So of course we enjoy pleasure. Of course we enjoy receiving fun, if you will. It's what we're made for, to thankfully receive good gifts from God and from others. So how does fun work? It works in a rhythm of giving and receiving, of pouring out and drinking in. And it's the rhythm for which we were made. Here's the thing, though. Conceiving of existence as essentially a rhythm of giving and receiving will trigger a seismic shift in how we move through the world. And that is because of what giving does, what fun makes. And what fun makes is community. Here's the thing. The other is logically essential in order for there to be giving and receiving. I can't give if there's no one to receive. I can't receive if there's no one to give. I can have something, drop it on the floor, and walk away from it, and now I have lost it. But to give something, I must give it to someone. Likewise, I can find something, pick it up, and acquire it, but to receive something, someone has to give it to me. And we see this in the rhythm of fun. The writer needs the reader. As a writer, I really do need the reader. Otherwise, why am I putting all these words on pieces of paper? The artist needs the audience. The chef needs the food critic. We need others in order to experience this rhythm of fun. But giving and receiving does something to us when we do it. It creates community. Here's what Lewis Hyde says in his book, The Gift. It is the cardinal difference between gift and commodity exchange that a gift establishes a feeling bond between two people, while the sale of a commodity leaves no necessary connection. See, gift exchange alters relationships. It creates community. It creates a feeling bond, an ongoing relationship, a friendship that comes with an expectation of mutuality. This is true between individuals. For example, if I'm on a work trip and I get a splitting headache, I can walk down the street to a Walgreens, buy some Advil, take the Advil, get rid of the headache. I don't then feel connected to Walgreens. I don't feel indebted to them. I'm not going to go tell my friends about Walgreens. I gave you money, you gave me drugs. This is the end of this relationship. Something very different is happening if I get that same headache, and my coworker looks at me and says, okay, I have 2 Advil left in my purse, and they're yours. You take them right now. I have still acquired 2 Advil and gotten rid of my headache. But what happened between me and my coworker is very different than what would have happened between me and Walgreens. I do feel indebted to her. If her stomach starts hurting after dinner, you can bet I'm digging through my purse for Tums because I want to even the score. No, I don't want to keep our transactions even. I want to keep our relationship open. That's what giving does to a relationship between individuals, but also throughout communities. Hyde refers to this as a gift economy, and he gives several very interesting examples of indigenous communities throughout the world that maintain their social cohesion via gift giving. And in these communities, there are particular objects or possessions that are circulated throughout the community over time. And the way it goes is when it's your turn, you receive the gift for a time, you enjoy it for a time, and when the time comes, you release it back into the gift economy. And over time, that circulation of gifts binds the community together. That's what a gift economy is. And one of the main examples he gives is actually ancient Israel, specifically with regard to the ancient Israelite laws about usury, which is just charging interest on loans. Here's what Deuteronomy says about that. Do not charge your brother interest on silver, food, or anything that can earn interest. You may charge a foreigner interest, but you must not charge your brother Israelite interest. You see, Israel was meant to be like a human body sharing blood. The blood in my body belongs to my body. If my heart starts trying to charge interest on blood loans to my kidneys, I'm going to have some serious medical issues. In the same way, what belonged to Israel was supposed to belong to Israel. Now, if there was going to be a metaphorical blood transfusion with an Egyptian, with someone outside the Jewish community, then they were allowed to charge interest. Just like if I'm going to make a blood transfusion, I need some terms and conditions on that transaction or I'm going to die. But that is what a gift economy is supposed to be. What belonged to Israel was meant to belong to Israel. This is actually one of the things that makes the story of Zacchaeus so poignant. You know the story of Zacchaeus. He was a real piece of work. He was basically a first century IRS agent, which meant he was not popular. However, he was also a tax collector, not for anyone, but for the Romans. So he was cooperating with an occupying military force in his homeland. Not only that, he was not only helping the Romans, he was using that position of power to bleed his countrymen. He should have been holding what he had in common with them, and instead he was leveraging his power to steal from them. He wasn't just a jerk, he was a race traitor and a real piece of work. So what is the first thing he does when he repents? He gives. Specifically, he gives back many times what he has stolen. If you do the math on that, he bankrupts himself. He throws everything he has stolen back into the gift economy of God's people in hope and in faith that they will respond the way a gift economy should, by giving back to him. The story of Zacchaeus is beautiful, not just because it's the story of a nasty piece of work becoming a halfway decent human being. It's the story of the reintegration of an exile back into the gift economy. It's the story of the reestablishment of this rhythm of joyfully giving and gratefully receiving good gifts. It is the reactivation of the rhythm of fun. Because fun is what we're made for. God made you for fun. And I mean that kind of heretical sounding sentence in 2 senses of the word. Number 1, God made you to have fun. God made you to enjoy this rhythm of giving and receiving. Work should be flow. Rest should be pleasure. When it's not, it's because we live in a fallen world and things are not as they should be. But God made you to enjoy this rhythm, to have fun in your work, in your play, in your rest, in your labor. What's more, in Genesis 1 and 2, God in his work and his rest is not just sort of like miming human activity so that we know how to do it right. He's not practicing, performing something alien to his nature so that we know how to do it. He's inviting us into rhythm with him. Observe the full sweep of Genesis 1:1 through Genesis 2:2. Genesis begins with God having an outrageous amount of giving fun. That's all he's doing in those first few verses, is pouring good, true, and beautiful gifts out into the world for others to enjoy. And at every step along the way, he says, this is good. This is good. This is good. This is so, so good. He's having fun. He's enjoying himself. And then in Genesis 1:26 through 28, he turns to humanity and says, now it's your turn. I have made, now it's your turn to make. I have given, now it's your turn to give. And then like a fan at a rock concert, he stands back and waits to receive what they will give. This is the rhythm we were made for. We were made to have fun, to enjoy this rhythm of giving and receiving. We're also made to be fun, by which I mean we are a liberal arts project for God. Remember the difference between the servile arts and the liberal arts. Servile arts, they get us what we want. Liberal arts, they are what we want. It's not possible for us to be a servile art for God because there's nothing we have, can produce, or can acquire that he needs. We are unnecessary, and that's a compliment. And yes, the Westminster Catechism does say, what is the chief end of man? To glorify God. Aha, but you don't actually add to God's glory. You can't, because it's mathematically impossible to increase that which is already infinite. God has and had infinite glory before anything else existed but him. We're extra. Here's what C.S. Lewis says in his book, The Four Loves. Friendship is unnecessary. It's like philosophy. It's like art. It's like the universe. For God did not need to create. It has no survival value. Rather, it is one of those things which give value to survival. Notice, God doesn't look at creation at the end of Genesis 1 and say, it is useful. He doesn't say, that's good for something. He says, it's good. Full stop. You've probably heard many times that God loves you. That's true. I'd like you to consider the possibility that God might also like you and enjoy your company and think you're fun. This is the rhythm for which we were made. God made us for fun. So, how do we then live in this rhythm of fun? How do we live in this gift economy and not just survive in a human society? Because, oh, that sounds lovely, Jacqueline, but we live in the real world. It's all well and good to say, oh, Jacqueline, you should really enjoy giving good gifts to the world, but I have to do that in an environment where I have to deal with heartless critics and plagiarists and people who just flat don't care. And it's all well and good to say you should joyfully receive the good gifts of creation, but I'm having to deal with a market that's saturated with what can only be described as bad gifts. I have to make my way in a world filled with ultra-processed food and sweatshop clothing. So how do I live like that in a world like this? I'd like to close with 3 suggestions. First of all, cultivate an awareness of other people's gifts to you. Remember what Keller and Alsdorf said. The pattern for all work is creative and assertive. It is rearranging the raw material of God's creation in such a way that it helps the world in general and people in particular thrive and flourish. The key term there is all work. All work. Whether you are streaming, whether you're designing games, whether you're a furniture factory worker, whether you're a miner or a coffee farmer. Whatever you do has this kind of eternal value, which means all of your work has that eternal value, and all of everyone else's work has that eternal value. And at any point in time, you are on the receiving end of an innumerable number of other people's gifts. Take this moment right now. Who made the chairs we've been sitting in all week? I don't know. But some actual people working in an actual factory somewhere worked probably a pretty hard day's work so that y'all have something to sit on right now. Who mined the metal that became the wires that's in this microphone right now? I don't know their name. They're in another continent somewhere. But you only are able to hear me right now because of them. Who grew the coffee that we drank this morning? Coffee's not easy to grow. It takes years, and in some cases, generations. There's somewhere halfway across the world in Guatemala or Central America or Ethiopia that worked very, very hard for the 8 ounces of coffee that I drank at Waffle House this morning. The fact is, when you take a step back and start noticing the sheer number of gifts you've received, you're going to realize we've received more than we're ever going to be able to give back. Not in 100 lifetimes. So in those moments where you really feel, understandably, that the world is not worthy of the good gifts you have to offer, take a deep breath and notice how many of their gifts you're already holding in your hands. So cultivate an awareness of other people's gifts to you. Second of all, cultivate an awareness of God's gift to you. Gift economies are fragile things, because every person you add to the gift economy increases the risk of betrayal. Every new person you invite in could be the Zacchaeus, or worse, the Judas that messes it up for everyone. So we naturally, not just as Christians, but as people, we want to police that membership. We want to decide who's in or out. We want to decide who we'll trust in our gift economy. The problem is Jesus doesn't even sort of let us. Here's what he says in Luke. Love your enemies. Do good to those who hate you. Give to everyone who begs from you, and from the one who takes away your goods, do not demand them back. If you lend to those from whom you expect to receive, what credit is that to you? Even sinners lend to sinners and get back the same amount. But love your enemies and do good and lend, expecting nothing in return. What you'll notice that he's doing here is he is taking the gift economy of Israel that God established, and he is expanding the boundaries of that body infinitely. What he's telling his Jewish audience is everything you believe about the Jewish person standing next to you is true about every single person you'll ever meet. Here's the thing, though. Who really lives like that? This isn't safe. This isn't smart. This isn't sustainable. And it's so very, very easy to tell ourselves that we'll live like that when we have just a little bit more. I'll be generous when my paycheck's a little higher. I'll hear other people out when just a few more people are listening to me. I'll be vulnerable when I'm safe. We're going to make the world so much better. All we need is just a little more power. But as Christians, we really are equipped to do this. Because if our wacky, crazy, holy book is true, then all of the reality we live in is a gift economy overseen, sovereignly governed by God. Think about it. In light of Genesis, everything we have is a gift. Again, you're probably used to hearing salvation talked of as a gift. It is. But if Genesis is true, existence is a gift. Here's what Joseph Piper says in his book. Everything gained and everything claimed follows upon something given and comes after something gratuitous and unearned. In the beginning, there's always a gift. Nothing we have is ours. It was all a gift. It is all a gift from God directly to us or to us via other people. That's what we know in light of Genesis. And in light of Revelation, we have the promise that every gift we release back into this gift economy will return to us at the end of time. Again, it's just like York talked about yesterday. We're not looking towards a future where the whole world is burned up and we fly up into the clouds somewhere. We're looking towards a future where the whole world is made new and where every good gift we've given comes back to us in this gift economy of God's grace. Comes back to us, moreover, not so we can then hoard it for eternity, but so we can experience the joy of releasing it once again to travel throughout God's gift economy for all time, for all eternity. It's just a fact that we have no ground to lose. We have no territory to cede. Every battle worth fighting has already been won. It is extremely risky and extremely painful to offer good gifts to a broken and ungrateful world. But we can afford to be generous because we're not the ones fitting the bill. That was done 2,000 years ago on a hill called Calvary by a man named Jesus of Nazareth. Finally, how do you live in this rhythm of fun? Finally, go where the fun is. See, the older I get, which is happening faster than I thought it would, the older I get, the more I'm convinced that the Christian life is a lot less about picking Jesus up and bringing him anywhere and a lot more about finding where God is already at work and joining him there. If you've read Experiencing God by Henry Blackaby, I'm sure you'll agree. Because there are many places where the name of Christ is not known. There is not one single place where he is not Lord. So go where this rhythm of giving and receiving is audible and amplify it. And this is good news for y'all, because nerd culture is a haven of liberal arts love in a world that is pathologically preoccupied with profit. Try saying that 10 times fast. Here's what Ursula K. Le Guin says in a really amazing essay entitled, "Why Are Americans Afraid of Dragons?" In it, she addresses an attitude that's not simply anti-fantasy literature, but anti-fiction in general, and I think anti-fun completely. Here's what she says. To read War and Peace or The Lord of the Rings is plainly not work. You do it for pleasure. And if it cannot be justified as educational or self-improvement, then in the Puritan value system, it can only be self-indulgence or escapism. Equally, in the businessman's value system, if an act does not bring an immediate, tangible profit, it has no justification at all. Thus, the only person who has an excuse to read Tolkien or Tolstoy is the English teacher, because he gets paid for it. You see, in our world today, we have over here a chorus of well-meaning voices that insists everything turn a religious profit. You don't have time for video games. You need to get up and make yourself useful to the kingdom of God. Go witness to someone. Go translate a Bible. And then on the other end of the spectrum, we have equally well-meaning, materialistic, all-religious voices. And all we hear from them is, wake up, you need to make money. And then there's you. You crazy people. Having the gall to tell people that fun matters. That Magic the Gathering and Dungeons and Dragons and Final Fantasy matters. It's like our man Bubba loves to say, the stuff you love matters to God because you matter to God. Notice, let's exegete this for a hot second. It's not you're useful to God. It's not you have a key role to play in God's kingdom. It's not God has great plans for you to accomplish. It's not your kingdom resume. It's not your potential. It's you. You could spend the rest of your life in a vegetative coma and it would not lessen your value one bit. You matter. Yes, God loves you and he likes you. You're fun for him. He doesn't need you. He wants you. You matter. In a world without fun, that's a world without friends. And the reason is because servile arts friends are not friends. If all we have are people we use to accomplish the things we want, we don't have friends. So in a servile arts world, in a world pathologically preoccupied with profit, this message is radical. You matter. And the stuff you love matters. That's radical. So go where people are saying this and say it louder. 15 years later, I am still very disturbed by what I saw at that elementary school. But I'm more brokenhearted by what didn't happen. Because you see, in that town, those kids were going to learn to hate each other. It didn't really matter what anyone tried to teach them in social studies. I can tell you from experience, it didn't really matter how many times they watched Remember the Titans or Glory Road. They were going to learn to hate each other. But that day, they could have learned that they mattered. Perhaps more importantly, they could have learned that the kid sitting next to them mattered. That black kid that never stops talking about dragons, she matters. That those white kids that are obsessed with fairies, they matter. That the black kid who's seen Jungle Book 80 times, he matters. But you, in your work, get to interrupt moments like that. If you ever feel like you're operating on the fringes of God's kingdom, I would invite you to remember that the rhythm of fun is not extra to the human life. It's essential. It's central. Your work affords you the enviable opportunity to intersect with people's lives in those moments where they are allowing themselves to be human the way God intends for them to be human, the way he intended in Genesis, the way he intends in Revelation. By working in the nerd culture space, you've chosen to go where the fun is and make it louder. And if that's all you do, it's worth it. Thank you. In the chair.
Whichever stool you want,
I go with this one.
Which stool do you want? You want this stool? You want this stool?
No, this
You can
one.
have that stool.
No, I thought about it.
You want that stool?
I prayed about it.
You know, as somebody who grew up Presbyterian and then became non-denominational for the last decade and a half of my life, you and York are the two people that make me think about being Baptist. You know, can I get a little amen for that? Oh man, how awesome to hear from Jacqueline today. Can we just get another round of applause for Jacqueline? Thank you. Deeply, deeply thought-provoking, simultaneously just so deeply encouraging, Jacqueline, and that's something I appreciate. Really quickly, we're going to put this up on the screen. So Jacqueline's book just went up for pre-order.
It did.
Just went up for pre-order. All in good fun, the Theology of Fun. Scan that QR code and you can pre-order it. Now, Jacqueline, I've heard you talk about your book at Lux, at NCMS a little bit last year.
Jeez.
What you talked about this morning is adjacent,
yes,
but not identical.
No.
So give us just a little idea of what you wrote about and a little bit of the heart behind it. And I don't know, maybe you feel comfortable talking because I read the previous last chapter of your book. And so, which I suspect will be something more in the future. Yeah. Maybe you can even shed a little light on that for us of like, where do you see it going beyond what you've written here?
Yeah. So as far as what to expect in this particular book, what you've heard today is me bouncing along the top of, this is a stone bouncing along the top of a lake. If you'd like to go deeper on any of these points, then this is the book for you. For instance, I didn't go into a lot of depth today about where fun goes wrong, because it does. Fun happens in a lot of ways that it shouldn't. There's a whole chapter on that. I talk more about, there's a whole chapter on how to make your life more fun. Because whatever circumstances you're in, you can make your life more fun, depending on how you approach it. And then I also have a chapter on how to make other people's lives more fun, both individually, with the particular people whose lives intersect yours, and also systemically. So if any of this resonated with you, and you think, gosh, I'd like another 2,000 words on that, that's the book for you. So yes.
There you go. Yeah, awesome. I wanted to touch on, because you got practical here at the end, and we're going to open up to questions. You have questions for Jacqueline. We have time for that. So I'll come to that in a second, but I'm going to ask mine first because I have the microphone. And so you sort of touched on this here at the end as you got landing the plane, getting a little practical. How can we actually do this? Let me ask you, for you, how do you practically recognize the fun that's been given to allow you to have the life that you have, the flow that's been given to allow you to, like, is it a thing where, man, you wake up every morning and you're just like, you like touch the bed sheets and you're like, this was someone had so much flow when they made these sheets. Yes. Like, what is that? But how do you like practically, it's one thing to say, hey, let's like hypothetically think about this. It's another thing to like practically orient that into your life when you wake up without caffeine and you already have a headache and you have to brush your teeth before you can go downstairs. Like, that's my life exactly, but go ahead.
Yeah, in terms of like one of the key ways to make your life more fun is to focus on what gift you're giving. For instance, in my work, I work in the nonprofit sphere and I do a lot of marketing. And so I've worked for missionary organizations and seminaries. And so my day-to-day work is very separated from the stuff that feels the most meaningful. When I get to hear missionaries talk about the amazing experiences they've had on the field, I didn't experience that. When I hear our seminary graduates talk about the amazing ministries that they're a part of as a result of their training at our seminary, I'm a part of that, but I'm really far removed from it. I don't go do revivals. I don't, witness to people in the street every day. I work at a desk, and I look at a lot of spreadsheets. And so what has actually helped me in my daily work, whether it's the work at the desk with the spreadsheets or whether it's like doing the dishes or cleaning the house, which I definitely do.
Totally.
I try and turn my attention to who is this going to bless? Not benefit, bless. Who are the particular people I know whose lives will be made better by the work I do here today? It changes how I do dishes when I'm doing them because I want to make life better for my husband. It changes how I fill out my spreadsheets and how I write my marketing plans and how I spend my advertising dollars when I'm actually not thinking about this big grand plan of God's great kingdom, but whenever I'm thinking about, I really care about our vice president for enrollment. And if I can get us another 100 students through my work, his life is going to be measurably better. He's going to go home with lower blood pressure. And so finding the people in your immediate sphere who your work, paid, unpaid, volunteer, in the home, out of the home, your work is a gift to, and do it as a gift to them. Think about how doing something as a gift transforms it. Cleaning the house, I hate it. Cleaning the house, cleaning my mom's house as a surprise for her birthday, completely different experience, because my focus is on the good gift I'm giving. So that is one of the ways I found very helpful to find more fun in my labor, in my work. And again, finding more receiving fun, a lot of it really is attention. We go through life very quickly. And in a way, we eat very fast. We drink very fast. Don't even pay attention to how stuff tastes. But I actually had a moment about a year ago where it was a Saturday. My son was with his grandparents, so I had the whole afternoon to do nothing but sit on the couch, eat ice cream, and watch The Mandalorian. And I was very excited. This is the way. But I've been writing this book, and so I sit down on the couch with, my Ben & Jerry's and my spoon and the laptop. I don't have a TV, I have a laptop, millennials. And so, but I had this moment of, wait, who made this ice cream? Like, this comes from a factory in Vermont somewhere. Like, actual people made this. And I bought it from Kroger, and I don't even know the names of the people who work at Kroger. Who made The Mandalorian? I'll never meet Pedro Pascal. Hundreds of people worked to make this 45 minutes that I just get to sit here and enjoy. And I had to put the ice cream back in the freezer and just take a minute because I did find myself overwhelmed once I just started giving my attention to the things I enjoy and thinking of them not just as things I enjoy, but as good gifts from someone. And so a lot of it is your intent, your focus when you're giving, but also your attention when you're receiving, with whatever that is.
Awesome. Thank you, Jacqueline. Okay, questions for Jacqueline? Anybody got something? Jeff in the back. Jeff. Yeah, so Jeff asked, I'm wired to be strategic. I'm wired for the servile arts. I'm wired for flow.
Yeah.
Right? So how do I just swallowed spit down my throat in a weird place. And so the question was, how do I maintain this sense of joy and fun, even in a world of strategy, even when it, for the kingdom?
Yeah.
Right?
Well, that's one of the things I talk about in the first couple chapters is the categories of servile and liberal. They are distinct, but they're porous in that something can float in between them over time. There are things I enjoy today as a liberal art that 20 years ago I absolutely hated, like exercise. So a servile art that you do because you want lower blood pressure and, health can become a liberal art over time. And in the same way, there are liberal arts that do a servile service. Like you said, you really enjoy strategy. You enjoy the challenge of overcoming, how do I make things happen in a way? You definitely don't need to feel guilty about that. Just because something you enjoy is profitable doesn't mean it's bad. It's just a bonus. And so that is ideally how things work is both, yes, this is useful, and that makes me happy, but it's also enjoyable, and that also makes me happy. And so there are things in our lives that fall very clearly into servile, liberal, but our lived experience is a lot more like this. And that's not a bad thing, because results are good. It's whenever all we care about are results that it drains the fun out of our lives. It's a very good thing that you like strategy and hard work and figuring out how to solve problems. You were wired for that. That's what you're supposed to do. And so it's both enjoyable for you because the actual process is enjoyable, and it's also enjoyable because it's satisfying to see good results from your work. It's okay that those mix and meld. That's the experience.
I think that every person in this room that's been a streamer or a creator or a YouTuber knows that experience, right? You grew up playing video games. It was simply a liberal art. And then you're like, maybe I can make an income off of this. And it became a completely different thing. And it can completely drain and suck all of the fun and enjoyment out of what you were doing. And it can completely burn you out. This is what most people experience when they take their passion and try to make it their profession, right? It's like, hey, I really love going to nerd conventions, right? I love going to, but now I'm going to all of them if I work for LTN and I feel really burnt out by them, right? I go to all of them. Or, hey, I loved music and I did music as a passion growing up and I just love to sit in my room and listen to music and play guitar. And now I'm a worship leader, or I've studied music theory and I'm now trying to understand the science behind it, and it's now my job and I'm paid for it. It's a really hard thing when something that was a liberal art turns into a servile art, and it can be hard to continue to find the fun in those things, which I think is all of us have probably experienced to one degree or another.
When people see how well I bake, they immediately say, have you thought about opening a bakery? And I take that as a compliment because it means I'm good at it. But I also recognize that as we have a baseline assumption that if you're good at something, you should make a profit off of it.
That doesn't necessarily follow.
You can, and you might, and that might work for you financially and with regards to mental, emotional, and spiritual health. But it might not, and it doesn't have to.
Yeah. I could dig into that a whole bunch, but I'm not going to because we're going to ask other questions, Greg.
So, kind of on the flip side of that, I think a lot of us here say that we enjoy and have fun with the work that we do.
Yeah.
So, if that's the case, what advice would you give if, you have a lot of fun with your work, but you don't necessarily always feel like you're working?
Oh, okay. So the question was, what do you do when you have a lot of fun with your work, but you don't always necessarily feel like you're working, right? This concept of, hey, if you work doing what you love, you'll never work a day in your life, right? Yeah.
So I have a clarifying question. When you say I don't feel like I'm working, what does feeling like you're working feel like? Like, because I'm thinking like that could mean it's like you feel, because you could mean I feel like I'm under challenged. Like I enjoy this so much, it's not really pushing me. Or I'm enjoying this, I'm having a good time, but I'm not really seeing results. Like when you say I don't feel like I'm working, what does that mean to you?
Well, I think there's maybe a certain level of, I don't know if fatigue is the right word, it might be too strong, but I think with work, like, you get to the end of your week or month, and you feel like, I'm great.
Yeah.
For me personally, whenever I'm doing something that I like and I enjoy, it's work. It doesn't necessarily drain me as quickly as like whenever I work at the farm or whenever I work at the roof.
So what I'm hearing there and what Greg said is like at the end of the month after I'm done with work, if it's something that I enjoy and it's fun to me, I don't feel exerted or exhausted.
Yeah.
Whereas if I'm doing something, and really what I'm hearing is the world puts a lot of pressure on you to do something that you don't enjoy doing so that you can get the feeling of being exerted, exhausted, or burnt out at the end of it. And if you don't feel exerted, exhausted, or burnt out, you should feel guilty.
So I'm learning this actually with working out right now. I love working out. I love lifting weights and high intensity interval training. But my body is starting to say no. And so I've started doing a lot more like stretching and dynamic exercises. And I've had to shift my perspective on what counts as a workout. Because there was a time when I would say that an hour of yoga, that's not a workout. It's a workout at this altitude, by the way. And so part of that might be shifting your expectations of, I don't need to feel drained. It's okay that I get to the end of a workout and I'm not dripping sweat, starting to black out a little bit, and heaving terrible breaths. That never happens all the time. So recognizing that expectation that you should feel that strained, that's not a bad thing. You're not being lazy. The other thing is to celebrate the fact that you don't feel negatively drained. And the third thing I would suggest is if you do get to the end of your week, of your month, and you're finding that there's reserves of energy unspent, maybe that's an opportunity to explore, is there another avenue through which I could be giving, paid, unpaid, volunteer, whatever, that I have leftover energy at the end of the week. Awesome. What can I do with that? That's the three things I would say. If that's helpful.
Yeah, and when you have kids, you don't ever have leftover. I mean, just always drawing on that tank of E. You have a question?
So yesterday, York kind of broke my So I was thinking as from your talk, we used to lead in liberal arts. I would say centuries ago. We led in the liberal arts. At some point, it stopped being about us being who God created us to be, which brings him glory. Started to become about how do I engage in the servile art of bringing people to Christ.
Yeah.
Now we've realized that we've completely lost the leading in culture in the liberal arts. Not completely, but a lot.
Yeah.
And it seemed, if we say things like Christian media sucks, which, and how much it does, is it because we've tried to then turn the liberal arts into a servile art because we're trying to catch up and we can't because it's still not just about having fun.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
It does makes perfect sense. Do you want to restate that for the stream?
No, you do.
If I'm hearing you correctly, you're asking, for a long time, you can point to a lot of really great Christian liberal art. Tolkien, C.S. Lewis, the Renaissance, etc. But that today, Christians are not known for having amazing art. In fact, we're a bit of a punchline. The Christian art is bad. Christian movies are bad. And I think you're absolutely right that part of the reason much of faith-based media, as it were, is not good art because it's not liberal arts, it's a servile art. The question that those particular creators were asking was not, how do I make something beautiful? It was, how do I make something that has a desired effect? As a marketing professional, that's marketing. When I sit down to write ad copy or to design advertising campaigns or to write social media content, I'm not doing liberal arts work. I'm not just creating something beautiful on our Facebook page. I'm creating something with the intent of it having a desired effect. It's not necessarily bad. That's not art. That's marketing. Art is about making something beautiful because something beautiful is worth making. Art for art's sake, if you will. Oscar Wilde said a lot of things that are true. One of them is that he said, all art is useless, which I thought was really insulting when I read it as like a 19-year-old. Now, I think what he's meaning there is that art is not meant to be put to use. It's not meant to be put to service. It's valuable just being. And so I think you are right that a lot of times faith-based media is not as good as it could be because we as Christians go into it with the question of how do I squeeze profit out of this? Not monetary, but spiritual, but still profit. Instead of asking, how do I make something good? Tolkien and Lewis weren't thinking about they wanted to make something good. And so they did.
Good.
So, probably going to answer this in the how fun goes wrong question,
Yeah.
but as like a just a very personal, more applicable situation.
Yeah.
So I like games like apples to apples, to Jackbox games, a lot of those things that get closer and closer to the Cards Against Humanity situation. And Cards Against Humanity is really fun, but I always find that if I play it, I have to remove the cards.
Fair enough.
But if I ever go on Twitch and I'm like, I want to play some Jackbox with people, usually it's a complete crapshoot on whether or not I'm going to find one.
Yeah.
It's like, am I going to be that Christian wet blanket?
This one reminds me of Jesus.
So it's
Yeah.
like, how do we as Christians engage and amplify the fun without becoming entirely, one, becoming a wet blanket, or two, compromising what God says is true for you?
Yeah, ethics.
So the question really is, in a world that defines fun very differently than maybe what we as Christians would define fun, how do we engage in the world around us without crossing a line or just clearly not being fun? And just for the record, our church, we can't really play Jackbox together. So at least not with their pastor. Does not work. Go ahead.
I'll riff on that later. That's very fair. And you're also talking about an added layer of complexity because it's not just something that you're doing with your friends around the table. You're doing it on the internet for everyone to see. And I don't need to give you examples. There are good things you can do that you don't need to do on the internet for everyone to see. Certain board games might be that. We don't stream my D&D game because reasons. And so in the terms of like both not just riding the line of what am I doing just for fun for myself, but also how am I having fun in a creative way by making content for other people, it can be a bummer, but sometimes it's just is knowing some boundaries of like, that is fun. I enjoy that with my friends and my family. I'm not going to do that online in front of the internet. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. And that doesn't even necessarily mean that thing X is wrong for everyone, everywhere, all the time. It's just not best for me right now. And I've found for a lot of stuff like that, reframing so many things from this is wrong and no one should ever do it to this is not best for me right now set me free in a lot of ways because it took a lot of the pressure off of making the best decision for everyone everywhere. Instead, just making a right decision for me right here, right now. If that's helpful?
Hey, can we give it up and just thank Jacqueline for coming and speaking? Listen, Jacqueline will be around for a little bit, so if you have other questions and you want to ask, feel free to come up and just chat with her, go up to her and chat with her. A couple of things that I want to highlight before we go to our break really quick. Once again, the ministry passports, if you want to get the rest of the stamps, and then the baskets over here, Zach will have it. We're going to do our giveaway today after next keynote. So we have one sponsor, one conversation with the ministry left, and then one keynote left this morning after our break. When those things are done, we're going to have somebody draw for the winner of that. And do we have a picture of it to put up there? I think you guys understand what the schedule is. Did we end up with that? It's a bunch of D&D stuff you can pick from. And wait, what's the company that came from that weren't able to be here with us? NTSD Gaming. Yeah, so if you went down there and you saw like the cool D&D dice and a bunch of the stuff down there, looks like it's custom and super cool. That stuff all comes NTSD Gaming. And they made the notebooks for us, the NCMS notebooks as well. And so we have a pile of their stuff that we're going to do as a giveaway at the end. So check that out. The other thing I just want to say is do me a favor, stop by if you haven't yet, the Nurch booth. If you give a donation at Nurch, they have one of these dope shirts for you that says Church for Nerds on the back of it. It has their Nurch logo or N here on the front of it. So stop by and talk to our German friends today during the break and hang out with them. Those donations do go to just supply and support their church plant in Frankfurt. And so please consider doing that. One of the reasons that they are here is because they want to grow, but also because they're here to help raise funds and bring stuff back so they can continue to do the ministry that they've already started at Nurch in Frankfurt. So stop by their booth during the break. We're going to take a break for about 30 minutes. We're going to be back in here at 10:35 for the last portion of our time in the Great Hall for NCMS. So go to the bathroom, grab something to drink. We'll see you back in a minute. Hey guys, we're going to gather in about 8 minutes in the Great Hall. 8 minutes in the Great Hall. Continue your conversations. Visit Reliant. 8 minutes in the Great Hall. 1 minute warning. 1 minute warning. Make your way back into the Great Hall. Find a seat. Make your way back in here. Find a seat. 1 minute warning. Okay, everybody, we're going to get started again. If you can, come on in, find a seat in the Great Hall. Come on in and find a seat in the Great Hall. We're going to get going here. We got one more keynote for you. I'm excited for the one that's coming up, too. Really excited for the one that's coming up. Okie dokie, everybody, come on in. Make your way back on into the Great Hall. Well, hey, one of the things that we've had the chance to do over the course of this last year, since NCMS 2023, is we've had the chance to begin partnership with some incredible collegiate ministries they're doing work all the time on college campuses with the desire to bring a ministry, a Bible study, or a gospel presence to every college campus. One of our sponsors this year was the Coalition for Christian Outreach, which is a collegiate ministry up in my area that York is the president of, and it's been great to see them. And also through that, every campus, which Lux has become a partner with every campus and has begun working with every campus to help them think outside of what they've traditionally done, to think, how do you reach the college student on your campus, because some of us were this person, who goes to class and then comes back and plays League. And they don't leave their dorm room to go to the classic college events that we previously have created on campuses to invite college students into. And there's some incredible ministries out there who are doing stuff with that, like Seven Admirals and a lot of other college ministries that are getting onto college campuses and into communities to invite the people out, create something that people who typically would not leave their house to go to an event actually want to come to and engage with. And one of those college ministries that's really beginning to explore what it looks like to reach the nerds on the campuses that they're on is our friends at Cru. So I'm going to invite Jeff to come up. Jeff, come on up. Here's a microphone for you. Our friends at Cru. Jeff, real quickly, just share a little bit about who you are and what it is that you do for Cru. And for those of us who are, maybe you're not familiar with Cru, maybe you are on one of the college campuses that Cru isn't on, share a little bit about kind of Cru's heart and vision.
Oh, for sure. Thanks. And, not everybody has heard of the name Cru. Some of us know us by other names as well. Historically, Campus Crusade for Christ. In other countries, Power to Change. If you know Blocker J, he's Power to Change. And Agape in Europe, and lots of different names. But primarily a campus ministry working with college students. And our biggest heart is not to just be insular, but also to be thinking about the lost and other people on campus that we can be outgoing and caring toward. And so we want to equip students as missionaries to their sphere of influence, whatever that is, whether that's a football team or in our case, like you said, League of Legends. So lately, I shifted from a role primarily in church partnership, because partnership across borders is on one of my main heartbeats, but also exploring how do we reach students in the gaming and nerd culture sectors of the campus. And so we're just exploring, trying a lot of different things.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So tell me a little bit about, like, if you can, what you're able to talk about. What are some of the stuff that you guys are working on, brainstorming, looking to launch out into that says, hey, we have these handful of campuses maybe, and we know that there are students on that campus who probably are not leaving their dorm room when they're not in class, and they're gaming a lot, and we want to be able to have touch points with them as well. A lot of a lot of parachurch ministries, even campus ministries previously, and rightfully so, strategy has been like, hey, how do we interact with maybe some of the kids on campus that are the more popular, that are the more put together, and they'll draw the other ones in, right? Well, we know that culturally we're becoming steadily more tribal, right? And the person who will bring in the college students from the football team is a very different person than the one who leads the people who bring in someone from the anime community on campus. So how is Cru looking towards like pivoting and doing new things? What are you excited about, really, is what I'm asking you, because you're a nerd too, right? So like, what are you excited about? What's like get you out of bed in the morning project-wise you guys are working on?
Yeah, well, absolutely. Certainly, I am a nerd, heart through and through, multi-purpose nerd with D&D and Magic and Final Fantasy and all that stuff as well. But at my heart, at the core, I care about like individual people and what they care about. Again, you guys have been saying what matters to you matters to God. And I think and Cru has been guilty of this as well. We have demonized certain activities and certain kind of people and styles. And I think it starts with just helping students to realize that we care about them and we're excited about what they're excited about, and God can use them in that realm. And it doesn't mean having to be like cheesy and heavy and overtly Jesus, but how do you wear Christ as you're among people and the decisions you make and the behaviors. And so I think it starts with the students that we already know on the campus who are involved in Cru, just surfacing their interests that have been hidden and not celebrated so far, and then helping them to walk in balance and helping them to shine the light of Christ out to the people that they're already building relationships with. So whether they play Minecraft, helping them to reach Minecrafters, or Fortnite, how to reach other people that way. But it's mostly empowering students who are people of peace in that field, because I'm never going to be an expert in every field. We go out every week on VR chat and share our faith, but I'm not a native to VR chat. I'm looking for people who are building the churches there, who are going to be the ongoing residents there, for example.
Awesome. Well, for just people who are sitting here thinking, man, I have a college campus near me, and I have a heart for college students. I know that through working with every campus, I know that's a big heart of theirs, is like, can we prayer walk every college campus? And a lot of their stuff is like, man, we can't be paying a staff to go onto every college campus across the country. But what we do need is people with a heart and a burden for kids on campuses that want to see them get to know Jesus, that want to go and build relationships with them. Some of you might be in here and be like, man, I have a college campus that's near me, and I might be willing to go prayer walk on that campus. I would be willing to maybe partner up and help start something on that campus that is going to start a D&D group on that campus. I might be willing to get involved there to begin to reach the people that love the things that I love. How would, if I was in this room, we kind of connect with some of the college ministries that are out there, which many of us may not even be aware of, to get something going on the campus that's local to us?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I personally love to be a hub and a connector. I don't want to be a bottleneck. So if you want to look up the campuses near you, you can probably find on every campus, you can find all the ministries that are on that campus and their contact information. So whether it's us or InterVarsity or CCO, get in touch with them. But I would love to help curate those relationships too. Sometimes I can help, move things along. And it's not just college as well. We have a high school ministry, and we can help coach you guys in how you can reach students. My heart is not that we should be a parachurch organization that reaches the students for you and we'll send you a prayer letter and that's it. Like, we want to get you actively involved discipling students and empowering them to reach their classmates. So reach out to me, or again, find us online every campus or on cru.org. That'd be fine.
Yeah, and this might be easier than you think. We have a student who came through our church, loves gaming, ended up at Penn State, Maine, and getting involved in their esports program, helping facilitate some of their clubs. He just didn't really have anybody, and he wanted somebody to come in, not just coach, but also to mentor and invest in students, kind of like a chaplain. And we weren't able to do it because we're not local, right? But he reached out to us and was like, hey, would one of you be willing and able to come coach some of our Penn State teams, right? And so there may be an esports club or somebody's looking for mentorship inside of an esports community right on a campus or a high school that's near you. And as esports grows, it creates ample opportunity for us as believers to step in the same way that many people see, the soccer team that their kid is on or the basketball team at their local high school as a place for them to be a blessing and a coach and a mentor, but also as a ministry opportunity to pour into the lives of the students that they're invested in. And so if you're interested in that and more, don't hesitate to reach out to Crew, reach out to the Coalition for Christian Outreach, reach out to InterVarsity, get connected to every campus. I know you can go right on every campus's website and literally see every campus that still needs prayer walk and every campus that still needs an active Christ-centered ministry and presence on it. And that might be a campus that's right next to you.
I want to plug one last piece, and that is online. I know a lot of you guys stream, and a lot of students would love to get into that, but you know how many errors they can make blundering into that. We would love to connect them with mentors who've already been there. So please reach out to us.
Yeah, awesome. You always give a thanks to Crew and to Jeff for being here with us this week. Awesome. Hey, one other quick order of business before we head to our last keynote. If you were unable to get to, which you can't get to all the workshops because you have 2 opportunities and there's 3 of them, but if you were unable to get to Dort's workshop yesterday, but you want to help them building the program that they're building at Dort to help build sort of like a ministry centered around nerd culture and gaming, there's a QR code up there on the screen. You can scan it and fill out the form that will take you to if you would still like to be involved with what they're doing over at Dort University. Over here, right here, yep. With over here at Dort University, just do me a favor, grab that QR code, fill that out. They'd love to connect with you. And so if you have input in helping build what it is that they're working on at Dort, which has just been such an honor and a privilege. I've been able to be part of several conversations around the program that they're building. And I just think it's the coolest thing that Dort isn't just like, hey, let's just build our own program and offer it and see who will take it. I know a lot of the people in the online church space at this point. Like I know a lot of the people, and I met with somebody not too long ago who's like, oh yeah, I'm studying to get a degree in digital church planting. And I was like, who the frick is teaching that? I was like, who's your professor? And they're like, oh, it's just like a repurposed professor that was doing something else that doesn't have any practical knowledge inside of digital church planting. And that is not what Dort is doing. They're not just repurposing other professors to teach about gaming ministry. They're actually doing the grassroots hard work to build a program that will actually genuinely equip people. And for those of us in the room with a seminary degree, we know sometimes how well our ministry degrees actually equipped us to do any form or type of ministry at all. Mine did okay, but I'll tell you what, my undergraduate, not so great. But Dort is actually building something practical that will equip people to really be able to step into this space with a level of confidence, being equipped to genuinely engage with nerd culture and gaming culture in a way that is redemptive, which is why we're so excited to be a part of what Dort is doing. Okay, our last keynote for Nerd Culture Ministry Summit is my friend Jamie from oh my gosh, did I just drop Satellite Gaming? I was going to say Safe Point. Where's Steve? You almost got a keynote again, Steve. So close. From Satellite Gaming, one of the things that I absolutely love about what Jamie does at Satellite is not only his conviction about what he is doing being important for the emerging generations, but more than that, it is his conviction that what he's doing needs to be respectable, sustainable, and legacy. And what Jamie has built at Satellite, for me, it should be for many of us the gold standard when it comes to doing things and doing them really, really well and doing them in a way that is sustainable and healthy, that isn't just all passion, but also has all of the bones in place to be something that can last. And so let's watch this video for Jamie, and then we'll welcome him to the NCMS stage.
Jamie Harris is the founder and CEO of Satellite Gaming, based in Salem, Oregon. With a mission to point students to Jesus Christ through meaningful relationships built around video games, Satellite Gaming has created a unique platform to reach young people. Through nerd culture workshops for families and community members, and local esports tournaments for students, Jamie and his team are bridging the gap between faith and gaming culture. Since its inception nearly 10 years ago, Satellite Gaming has seen unprecedented growth, touching the lives of thousands of families, not only in Oregon or across the US, but around the world. Please welcome Jamie Harris to the NCMS stage.
Hello. Hello, friends. How are you? You having a good time? Yeah, that's good. Hey, that was pretty good. Everything's great except the elevation. Walking up here, I can't breathe. Oh, my goodness. I was sitting 3 feet from me. Hey, so my name is Jamie, and the most important thing I could do is introduce you to my family. So guess what? Where do I point this bad boy? Is it working? Do I point it at a thing? Do I? Steve's broken. Hey, let's just. I don't think it's working. All right, cool. Can somebody go to the next slide? Hey, here we go. Was that me? No, it was not. Hey, that's my family. So I'm the one in the red. It's hard to tell because of the long hair. My wife is the one with the long arm. Her arm's not really that long. It's an effect with the camera, in case you didn't know that. The little baby she's holding is my son, Miles. The girl with the awesome peace sign and the one eating her glasses is my daughter, Macy. She's 4. And then, of course, in the back is a young man named Sam. Sam interned with our ministry, and he lived with us for about 3 months as part of his gap year. And we just love having young people in our home. We've had a young person live in our home for the duration of their senior year. It's something we try to do often, but with 2 kids, I'm kind of tired of it. Sam, you're probably the last one. So, hey. So I have a beautiful, beautiful wife, as you can see, and I want to tell you a few other things about myself. I love to draw. I love to read. I love working on my koi pond. Yeah, that's right. I have about 12 koi and a few goldfish and 3 frogs. Well, we have Slick Nick, Thick Rick, and Tiny Tim, and we haven't seen Slick Nick in like a year and a half, so may he rest in peace. They like bury themselves in the winter, and I just think like he just thought it was so cozy down there, he didn't come out for the summer. So, rest in peace, buddy. So I have many hobbies, but like many of you in this room, there's one that takes the cake, and that is video game ministry. Yeah? Shout out your favorite game. Just go ahead, shout it out. Hey, there we go. There's one. I heard one. Escape from Tarkov. Ryan with the loud voice. So, quite frankly, I'm not as. I want to be careful how I say this because this isn't to be self-deprecative. I'm not as qualified as a lot of people in this room. So I want to explain why I'm up here. I'm not as well studied as Jacqueline. I'm not administratively gifted like the Sams of this world. Thank you, Sam. You're awesome. I'm not producing content like Susie or Jate and many others. I'm not a theologian like Steve. And I have a long way to go before I can write like Lamar. These things used to discourage me, but not anymore. It's not self-deprecation. I say these things to confidently acknowledge that I have been carried greatly by the grace of God and the giftedness of those around me. I'm involved with video game and nerd culture ministry in a number of ways. First of all, I'm really passionate about mentoring young people and helping them practicing the way of following Jesus Christ. I try to have about a dozen young people that I personally mentor and disciple at any given time. I'm one of the facilitators of a global ministry called Go Game, and I serve on the strategy team of its parent ministry. This January, through Go Game, we'll be running something called Multiply School. It happens around 70 times a year with sports ministry, but this will be the first time ever that there will be a Multiply School, which is a 21-day residential training where 13 leaders from 6 different countries are going to be living at a YWAM base, again, for 21 days, learning about how to do video game ministry. 13 people from 6 different countries. And I'll tell you this, you can ask Bubba, North America, we're doing all right with some video game ministry. Some people around the world are popping off. Brazil, Egypt, Thailand, Indonesia, they're doing some amazing things with video game ministry, and I'm so honored I get to be a part of what they're doing. I also operate as the executive director of Satellite Gaming, and although it was founded as a nonprofit about 6 or 7 years ago, we've been under the name Satellite for about 10 years. I've been in this work for a little while now, and just over 5 years ago, I was in a position similar to many of you, where I was working a full-time vocation I was a youth pastor so I could pay the bills. But every single free moment that I had, I was spending developing video game ministry and trying out new things. It was very hard. There were many times where I wanted to quit, but the ministry began to grow somewhat rapidly. At SG, we focus on in-person video game ministry. Maybe IRL, if you're feeling a little risky, you can call it that. It started with just a small event of 40 kids. And we are a youth group of 15 kids. So my senior pastor said, hey, that was a success. You can do it again. You have a budget of $100 this time, and charge the kids $5 for pizza. And I said, okay, I will do that. And we had about 125 people show up. And there were a bunch of parents. And we said, what do we do with the parents? Well, let's teach them in another room. So we say where students compete and parents and families learn. Right? I was like, that's pretty catchy, pretty cool. Let's do it. Then we had 250 people show up at a venue the space was probably about this size, and there was a side room, one toilet. It may have gotten clogged, and we may have had middle schoolers peeing outside, okay? It was way bigger than we expected. It was a little scary, and the school district called, and I was like, we're never going to be able to invite kids to this again. And they said, all the Yu-Gi-Oh kids are the cool kids now. What happened? They're all wearing these satellite logos, and it's kind of weird. They're like all being nice to each other. And I was like, well, let's see what we can do. And they said, hey, will you start having your events in our school? And I said, no, because your school's too expensive. And they said, no, actually, we're going to pay you to run the events in our school. And we're going to pay you to run after-school programs so that you can be a part of our grant. And it was like, this is like the book of Ezra coming to life. It was very, very beautiful. Eventually, we had events in the public schools where we were reaching up to 500 people, educating parents, running events with close to 100 volunteers. And it got to a point where we got up to 45 students that were packed in my living room, reading the word, worshiping, and learning about Jesus Christ. And our student leadership team began to grow. It was awesome, and then, boom, my wife got pregnant. I don't know how that happened. No. Oh, I do. I know. It is my fault. That changed some things. That changed some things. Hey, this is great. This isn't student ministry. I'm not around teenagers. I'm just like getting warmed up now. It was great. So we arrived at an ultimatum. I had never complained about my salary. I'd never asked for more, but things had to change. And I went to my senior pastor, and I told him, hey, bro, I got 9 months. And he's like, congratulations. You're right. I agree. You can't raise a family on that salary. Let's talk. We talked some numbers, and we both agreed on one. And he said, yeah, this is great. But what if this means it's time for you to start working full-time for Satellite Gaming? It was about a little over 5 years ago. I was like, okay, does that mean I'm fired? And he said, no, he was right. So I had 9 months to cook. So I created a strategy, and it looks something like this. So we did this with our board and with my pastor. Step 1, find out how to fundraise. Then, step 2, raise half of the salary in 9 months. Go on a 3-month paternity leave. Raise the other 6 months of my salary while I was working bivocationally for Satellite Gaming and for the church. And boom, that's an 18-month master plan. Let's do it. My approach was simple. Collect stories, share stories, tell people that I've got 9 months, and say, if you want to be a part of making this happen, here's the dollar amount we need. Will you partner with us to make sure this work continues? 3 months later, that 18-month goal had been hit. I was called. There was proof of concept. The Lord provided stories and fruitfulness. And I invited others to join. That was it. So why am I up here? Well, I'm up here today because I'm a product of the grace of God. And many of you, quite frankly, there's a lot of talent in this room. You are far more qualified than I am. Again, not to discredit myself. I say that with joy and confidence that whether you are called to do this work as a volunteer, bivocationally, part-time, full-time, there is a way to do that sustainably and a way to do it without burning out and that is to partner with what I would call a table of support, a support team. By God's grace, I'm up here to share what I've learned about this topic, and I hope you find it worth your time. So one primary expression of ministry that we do at Satellite Gaming is our program model. These are weekly programs that are separated into two different categories. Category one would be clubs, usually recreational, sometimes competitive, but there is absolutely no gospel presentation. These typically happen in public schools. That is why there's no gospel presentation. The second variation would be rifts. The rift is, well, if you play a certain video game, you might know, but I don't want to get in trouble for that. No one in this room would know what that is. The rift, it's actually a word that is not just part of a game. It's a divide. It's a crack in the ground. It's a separation. And the rift is where we talk to our students about the divide that exists between man and God, and how the only thing that can bridge that divide is Jesus Christ. Clubs are mostly a form of after-school programs, while rifts are anything from youth group with a small message to a discipleship group where we sit on my couch and we look at scripture for 2 hours and we do a Discover Bible study. Each program that we do serves a purpose, whether it's an after-school program or a youth group. And I need to be transparent and honest with myself as to whether or not these programs are fulfilling their purpose. And I need to be honest with others when I communicate that these programs are indeed fulfilling their purpose. It's a very simple yet important question we need to ask ourselves about our live streams, about our programs, about our events, about LDC InCon. Is this actually fulfilling its intended purpose? To hold ourselves accountable to this at Satellite Gaming, we created a system, which you're looking at here on the screen. It is a simple Google form. They're so easy to fill out, right? You just remember every time. It's awesome. Obviously, there's a little tongue-in-cheek there. At the end of each program, the staff or volunteer is required to fill this out. This form populates into a spreadsheet, and boom, we have data. Things like, did any incidences happen? How many students were there? Was there any equipment that was broken? Was anything stolen? That would be an incident, apparently. And one really cool question we get to ask, share one story of impact from your program. It doesn't have to be crazy. Just share one thing that happened that somehow represented the love of Jesus Christ. It could be, hey, you know Jimmy, that little turd kid, he finally let someone play Fortnite on split screen without complaining about it. Wow, that's a big step for Jimmy, let me tell you. Susie, she shared that her family is struggling, and she actually asked us if we could pray for her. She was so excited, but we didn't want to pray for her on school campus, so we said, hey, you can meet us in the parking lot afterward, or just trust that this is going to be near and dear to my heart. I will be praying for you, and I'll check in next week. Or what about Tommy, who helped us tear down the gear, helped us take the gear to our car, and then we talked for 20 minutes in the parking lot. We actually have a term for these. We call them blacktop talks, and it doesn't happen on accident. And now he's excited to get plugged into Satellite Gaming in new ways. Now, these stories are great. These stories are great. But we don't know them if we don't fill out the freaking form. There's way too many empathy laughs on that one, okay? One of our board members who gives generously to the ministry shared their feelings on the subject, and I'll share it in my own words. He said, Jamie, I'd love to talk with the staff if you're okay with that. I know it's your role as the executive director to lead the staff, but I really think they need to hear from someone who gives generously to this ministry, who believes in them, who wants them to succeed, and from someone who isn't their boss. He continued, I see myself as someone at home sending soldiers to war, to a battle that really matters. I'm part of this sending party that watches them go off to battle while I am at home, and I need to know that we are winning that battle. Not filling out this form, not documenting stories of impact. It's like winning a war and not celebrating about it when you get home. Jamie, as someone who stays home while everyone else goes off to war, it's really important that I know we're winning. Hearing stories of impact, it's going to help me know how I can pray. It'll tell me how I can celebrate, It will inspire me. It'll probably result in me giving more and preparing me more for the next battle. Jamie, if we as donors, as board members, as a prayer team, if we are really part of this team, please share with us the spoils of war. The spoils of war. As a minister of the gospel, every day that you wake up and walk out the door, you can see the next slide, every time you put on a headset and every time you push go live, you are entering a battlefield. Susie talked about this last night. And I'm here to tell you this. The army on the battlefield needs the army at home. I'm not talking about a physical war here. I'm acknowledging that we fight a spiritual battle. And we all know that Jesus has already won the eternal battle. But while we are here on earth, Paul reminds us in Ephesians, for we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against authorities, against cosmic powers over present darkness, the spiritual forces of evil in heavenly places. Ministry is a battlefield. And going into that battlefield without having people at home, my friends, it is not a healthy thing. Whether full-time, part-time, a volunteer, whether you work in the ministry space, also if you work in the secular space and you are a follower of Christ, you are living out the love of Jesus Christ in your workspace, you too need a sending party. This isn't just a talk for fundraisers here, okay? This is a talk for anybody that is going into the world, living out what it means to be a follower of Christ and to practice his ways. You need people at home. Here's what I mean by people at home. First, a table of support. I have a table of support. I could draw it out for you. I won't. That's not actually my table of support. That's like an AI picture or something, okay? But the table of support consists of several mentors for me, okay? I have a couple people that I mentor on that table of support because I want to be held accountable by the people that I'm leading, be held accountable by the people I'm discipling, okay? I want to use that as a gauge for like, how am I doing? If all the guys that I mentor are knuckleheads and they're not keeping track of their schedule, well, they probably learned that somewhere, okay? So I also have my work mentor, someone who's a CEO of a very large organization. I have a couple people that I spend time with once a month that do that. I have my pastor. I have a spiritual mentor. I have an accountability partner, and I have a therapist. Praise the Lord for my therapist. Prayer team. If you don't have people that are purposefully praying for you, at best, that's just a missed opportunity. That's just a missed opportunity. We all need a prayer team. Now, for many of you, you will need a financial team. You will need financial partners, donors, friends, whatever you call them. I feel like we spend more time talking about what to call donors than we do spend time calling donors. What matters less is what you call them, and what matters more is that you call them. In this metaphor of sharing the spoils of war, it is important that we determine what spoils we are bringing back from the battlefield to our people at home. Let's have fun with this little metaphor. We're going to do some role-playing. Is that cool? Next slide. This would be great. I think you guys understand this here. So, you guys like role-play? Yeah. We're going to do some role-playing, okay? So, imagine you are a warrior, a strapping lad at that, right? It's the prime of the medieval ages, and you are so excited because you just came of age, you're the talk of the village, and you are going to war. You receive a message that the local blacksmith has something for you. Whew. You've heard of his craftsmanship, and your mind is racing. Ooh, what will it be? What will it be? Perhaps your first quality sword. You walk to his shop with your military standard short swords tightly sheathed to your hip. Faithful blade as it may, you are already saying your goodbyes. You arrive with expectation only to discover that this blacksmith has crafted for you a fine boot knife. Now, it has your family's crest imprinted on the blade and his marking on the shaft. It is a beautiful blade, but you were hoping for just a little bit more. You've seen what he does for others. Certainly, he could provide you with just a little bit more. Now, you feel no need to speak your mind. Some of you are like, I know where this is going, okay? You feel no need to speak your mind, and you are indeed grateful for his provision. So you offer a hug, you thank him, and you go on your way. The next morning, to battle. As you fight your way through enemy front lines, others begin to talk about how incredibly handsome you are. They begin to talk about how incredible you are with a sword, how you are on the battlefield, and after a number of battles, you win the war, you grab some spoils, and you return home. You go home to your family, you hug them, and you begin to tell stories. But in your great wisdom, you are aware and you acknowledge that different people need different stories. Mom does not care about your bloody war stories. She just wants to know that her baby is safe. Grandpa, he wants to know what sights you saw and how many fish you caught while you were walking across the river he used to live nearby. Your brother, he wants to hear all the bloody battle stories. But don't forget the blacksmith. Next slide. Like mom, not everyone wants to hear about the battle. She doesn't care about how good you are with a sword. She wants to know that we won and her baby is safe. Let's pull away from that analogy for just a moment and picture ourselves after one of our video game or tabletop events, or maybe after a live stream, after a youth gathering or a tabletop campaign with your D&D friends. Now, it should not offend us that mom in this story does not care about our methodology. That should not offend us. People, next slide here, people don't know, they don't have to know what, nope, not that slide, sorry, it's the wrong order, that's fine. People don't have to know what wave dashing is in Smash Bros. In order for you to tell them about Kingdom Impact, okay? They don't care about your Victory Royale. I care. There are some people in this room that care. But mom probably doesn't, and that's okay. And many of the people at home can't begin to fathom how impressive your no-death run in Elden Ring really was. Okay? You know what? That's okay. They don't need to know those things. They don't need to know those things. You know what you say to mom after D&D club? You say, Mom, we really like those brownies you made. Thank you. Grandpa, hey, I was at a youth event, and you know what? 3 of the kids were wearing Bass Pro Shop hats. He'll have no idea that they've never gone fishing a day in their life. But remember, Grandpa doesn't care about the details, but he might appreciate that his culture is remembered and represented. Your brothers and sisters, people in this room, you tell us all about that Elden Ring because that's pretty impressive. But friends, you must not forget the blacksmith. It's because of him you are safe. Let him know of his contribution. And as we report these stories, it's important that we be very purposeful with how we word them. Allow me to explain. There's a difference in saying, I am safe because I used the sword you made me, okay? I am safe because I did a thing. That's one way of saying it. I'm safe because I used this sword you made. Instead, try this. Blacksmith. You were with me the whole time. You kept me safe. Your craftsmanship, your work, it won us the battle, my friend. Thank you so much. I don't invite people in this way. Can you give to Satellite Gaming so I can do blah, 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 blah? Or pray for me so I can do these great things. I think it should look more like this. These students really need to experience community, and your contribution makes that possible. If you truly see your table as support as partners, begin using we language, because this is a collaborative effort. Mom bakes the bread, brothers and sisters cheer you on or fight beside you. And your grandfather's wisdom to find joy in your travels to keep you sane is amazing, while the blacksmith provides the tools. We are a body of many moving parts, and your people at home and the blacksmith, they are the heartbeat of your ministry. All right, we're going to go into another scripture here in Samuel. What if you don't see the fruit? What if you can't see the fruit? What if you have no stories to tell? You have no spoils. Well, there could be a collection of reasons, but I'm going to start here in 1 Samuel 15. In this story, the Lord is telling Saul through Samuel, you got to kill everything. Take back no spoils. Burn it all to the ground. Well, there's obviously context to this story that could extremely distract us from this metaphor, but the point still stands. There are times you aren't taking anything home. We won the battle. It was a great event. But you didn't verbally share the gospel with anybody. Nobody got baptized. No one asked for prayer. It was just another day of incarnational ministry, and there's nothing to take home. First of all, this is not a loss. You still won the fight. You still won the battle. It was still a win. If we trust that when God says we are laborers working in a harvest field, with that, we should also trust that seeds take time. There's an old story that is passed down. I'm not sure of its origin, but there was a doctor who loved Jesus, and he wanted to live a more missional life. So he decided to pack up everything he had and move to a remote island that had never heard the gospel of Jesus before. And as he went to this island, he went to the chief and he said, hey, I would love to live on this island, be your doctor, and talk about my faith. Well, the chief said, okay, why don't you tell me about this faith of yours? So he tells him about Jesus, tells him about his love, tells him about his healing, tells him about his grace, and he says, all right, man, you can be our doctor, but you keep all that mumbo-jumbo to yourself. You can live down the road in the house at the edge of town. And he says, okay, I'll do it. So the doctor goes to his home, begins to journal his experiences every single day and writes in his journal, Lord, I pray that you show me the fruit. Lord, I pray that you show me the fruit. Let me have stories of victory. Please, that is my prayer. Day after day, he heals people. He helps them with their sickness. He shows them love. He shows them grace. He walks through life with them, but never once is he able to profess the name of Jesus to them. He begins to lose heart. He begins to get discouraged. And eventually, he starts writing in his journal, Lord, I don't think I'm going to see fruit. And before he loses heart, he begins to change his prayer. And he says, Lord, I'm changing my prayer to this. Give me the strength to be faithful, even if I can't see the fruit. He gets depressed, but he stays faithful. He gets discouraged, but he stays faithful. This man ends up dying with a pile of journals of prayers for these people by name and never once gets to share the gospel with them. Years later, another missionary with the same conviction, who was a doctor, goes to the same island. By then, there was a new chief. Doctor comes to the island. He says the same thing. Hey, can I be your doctor and share my faith with you? And again, like the old chief, the new chief said, tell me about this faith of yours. The doctor began to tell the person about Jesus Christ, how he healed, how he loved, how he cared. And as he came to a pause, with the puzzled look, the chief responded, we know this man. He lived at the edge of town in that little old house. He said, yes, of course you can live here. You can be our doctor. You can live amongst our people. And I will gather the village, and you can profess this Jesus that you speak of. Decades of seed that had been planted and a pile of journals that this doctor read resulted in this entire village surrendering their life to Jesus Christ. I used to pray before every single event, Lord, let us see some fruit. Let us see some fruit. It'll give us more gas in the tank. I love seeing fruit, and I still pray that. But more importantly, I pray, Lord, give me the strength to be faithful even if I don't see the fruit. Just because you can't see the fruit does not mean it's not there, my friends. Consider this scripture. A healthy tree cannot bear bad fruit, nor can a diseased tree bear good fruit. Every tree that does not bear good fruit is cut down and thrown into the fire. Thus, you will recognize them by their fruits. This is about individuals, right? It's about people producing fruit. It's a parable in its nature. But what is a ministry if not a collection of individual people that are producing fruit? What is church if not a body of believers, of individuals producing fruit? So, if there is individual fruit, there's probably organizational fruit in some way. It could be that you do this for 10 years and you never see fruit. Again, I pray that you remain faithful. If you can't see the fruit and you begin to question your calling to ministry, ask people around you that can be honest with you. Have that table of support. Hey, do you see faithfulness in my life? Do you see fruitfulness in my life? Do you see fruitfulness in the work of our ministry? Is this working? Can you help me identify it so I can celebrate it with the rest of our support team? It might be that there is fruit, but your own insecurities and imposter syndrome creeps in deeply, and it clouds our judgment. And we start to believe some crazy lie that there is no fruit in what we are doing. What I love about Jesus' words in this scripture is that he said, a healthy tree cannot bear bad fruit. A healthy tree. Let's be reminded that the gospel that we embrace is not about performance, my friends. And that is good news for all of us. Because if you have accepted the loving grace of Jesus Christ, you need to know that you are a good, beautiful, and healthy tree. And whether you see it, whether you feel it or not, there will be fruit. Not because of your good works, but because Jesus Christ came to heal the sick. And if you know him, though you are not perfect, you might be busted up like me. Hear this, there is nothing more healthy than accepting the goodness of Jesus Christ. And if you have done that, you are healthier than you realize. If you are following Christ and you are walking in the ways of Jesus, don't believe some stupid lie of the enemy that you're not producing fruit. As we identify this fruit and we begin to see these stories, we now have to communicate them to our people, to our support team, with our family and with the blacksmith. Let's be reminded that our words matter. We've heard this throughout a couple days, right? Nerd culture is a culture, and we are nerds, and we are in that culture, and that culture has a language, and we are really fluent in that language. A lot of you are really good at speaking nerd, okay? Like, I can't keep up with some of you, okay? It's pretty cool. But I'm going to admit this right now. Some of y'all, I might hear some talk about LARPing, Magic the Gathering, D&D. No shame right now. My most played game for the last 5 years has been Raid Shadow Legends. That is not a meme. That is not a meme. Is anybody else in this room play this game? Yeah, there's one. Let's go. So, I'm a nerd. I speak nerd. And I speak like the most cringy nerd that exists, okay? Like, I would argue Raid is more cringy than what some people think LARPing is. And I think LARPing's pretty dope. But here's the thing. Do you know what the nerd discord means amongst normies, against people out there? Okay? The word discord literally means disagreement. Okay? So if you are talking to someone who knows nothing about gaming, a pastor, and you say, hey, we're on Discord, he's like, what? Why would you want disagreement among you? You realize you are using a platform that is basically titled division. Like, why are you doing that? Here's the thing. Just don't even talk about Discord around normies. They're going to hear that and their brain's going to stop. Okay? Just don't do it. I have a buddy who's in the military. And when he came back into pedestrian life, I could not understand anything he was saying. Do we have any military people in here? Thank you so much for your service. Appreciate you guys very much. Now, I would ask him, hey man, how was work today? And his response was something like this. Well, at 0400, I mustered for a 30-minute PT, then prepped for chow down in my personal DFAC. But there was a major FTA because my pedestrian's kitchen is set up like a soup sandwich. But I was running late, so I had to pull chocks. Hooah! Like, dude, you lost me at 0400 for two reasons. One, just say 4 o'clock. And 2, why are you awake at 4 a.m.? Let's play this out in Nerd Talk. We got another picture here on the screen. You get done with an event, you go back and forth. You go back to your table of support and you say this. We used Minecraft to teach students about the Bible. We started our own server and built the temple, Noah's Ark, and recreated the opening of the tomb using redstone and sticky pistons. My friend, that sentence gets more nerdy with every word, okay? Yeah, this is our talk. This is our language, right? But let's try this again. Let's try this again in a more normie-friendly way. We used games to teach students about the Bible. During small group, we used the games as a tool to dig deep into topics like the temple and Noah's Ark. We even recreated the opening of Jesus' tomb. We as gamers or nerd ministry leaders, we are a different culture. And we are becoming the majority. But there are people that do not speak our language. What language do they speak? What phrases can we use to create a bridge? And why is it important to do this? Well, remember, as nerdy missionaries, we are constantly telling people to become all things to all people so that we might reach some. Do we honor that when we talk to people that are not nerds? Do we honor that when we talk to our pastors? Or do we just say, no, you need to understand how I am? No, you put on your nerd clothes to talk to the nerds. That's great. I love that. I'm not saying we need to. I mean, flaunt your nerd all you want. But if it would be helpful, what's crazy, I had a conversation about this week with somebody. I wrote this like a month ago. And it came up this week. Are we willing to become less nerdy so we might be able to speak to those who are less nerdy? If you're not willing to do that, people are not going to understand what you're doing. It is important to share victory stories in a way that people understand because we want them to be more excited than they are confused. We don't have to abandon all nerdy terms, but we should provide some context so it might be helpful. And maybe just say our online community instead of Discord. It's not that hard for us to do, and it really helps nudge them along, okay? Just do it. It's also important to speak their language so that we can discover missional alignment. Our alignment with non-gamers should not depend on them understanding our language. Yes, it's a good thing you speak nerd. It allows you to reach nerds. But if you're speaking to non-gamers about ministry, focus on what matters to them. Raising a table of support is ministry. Building that table of support is ministry in the same way that content creation is ministry. Some people, what they need, they really need someone like Susie to pull them along and maybe even carry them in a raid in World of Warcraft. They really need that, and that's going to minister to them. But some people experience ministry by being invited to participate in giving generously because they work very hard and they make money and they can't go do it or they don't know how to do it. And they are so excited to give so that they can be a part of what you are doing, and that is how they need to be ministered to. Don't see abandoning your nerdy speech as a way of compromise. See your future partners, your future prayer team, your future table of support as part of your mission, and because of that, you need to speak their language. As we get ready to close, I want to share a recent story. We get sponsors for our main events each year. And this main event, it has a substantial budget compared to the rest of our year, and it takes an army to run it. We had a friend of ours who runs a real estate company, and they've sponsored our events in the past. She's given before, and she really does not like video games. She might even be one of those, like, anti-gamers, okay? Now, I'm honest with her about what we do, but we really don't spend much time talking about video games at all. She just wants teenagers to experience the love of Jesus. So she sponsored this event that we had last April, and I sent her this text, I kid you not, last week. I said this to our friend, look at what your gift to our event made happen last year. We have one big esports tournament every year. We do not provide a verbal gospel presentation at this event because it is in partnership with the public school district. Last year, in April, we tested a new initiative we call Gamer of Peace. We sent out a short training video built on the book of Luke chapter 10 to each spiritual leader that was going to be present. There were around 75 volunteers, and a number of them watched the Gamer of Peace training. The goal was for each leader to identify a young person they could invest in or connect with one of our local staff so they could pour into them over the next season. The Gamer of Peace I met was Galaxy, a.k.a. Aiden. Aiden joined our online community. See what I did there? Aiden joined our online community and is active daily. He started coming to our weekly Bible studies saying, "I'm not a Christian, but I'll come and listen so I can play video games with you guys." We had students praying for him by name, and we sent out prayer letters to our volunteers and prayer team. I sent this person a prayer about him 6 months ago. Leaders and students were on mission to see this kid experience the love of Jesus Christ. Recently, he expressed he was losing his grandmother. That week, we had been studying in Samuel 14, where Jonathan's armor bearer said, "I am with you, heart and soul." I told him that just as the armor bearer was with Jonathan, I would be with him, heart and soul, through this challenging season. I sent this a week ago. It was the Sunday before I got here. This week, Galaxy said he was interested in going to church. I invited him to our church, and he brought his sister, and I brought donuts. It was a very special service because this man committed his life to Jesus Christ. We are now talking about baptism on November 24th, and I hope to send pictures of that amazing event. You can clap. God is good. That is all God. I said this young man has a fairly rough home life, but now he has a beautiful example of what family is. Continue to pray for Aiden and those leading him. This is a beautiful story, but listen to her response as someone who despises what video games has done to young people. Listen to her response. Jamie, and she loves texting, by the way. I cannot call this woman. We have coffee like once a quarter, and we text, okay? She said, "Jamie, I got chills. Thank you for being so willing to walk among the helpless and harassed as a living, breathing example of what life with Christ can be. And thank you for sharing this. It means everything to me. Let's set up a coffee in December. I have an end-of-year gift for Satellite Gaming." That person felt ministered to in that moment just as much as Galaxy felt ministered to. Amen? The spoils of war. This is the final slide. Do you have people sending you out to do ministry? Do you have a table of support, a prayer team, financial partners? If not, get to it. You may not all need financial support, but accountability, mentorship, camaraderie, prayer, we all need a table of support that looks like that. What stories of impact can you share with people that make sense to them? Speak their language. They too are your mission field, just like my friend that I text. Who can you share a story with right now? Pull out your phone, send a picture, send a text, thank a partner, share the spoils of war with those at home. And do not forget the blacksmith. You are all amazing, incredible humans with a very unique calling. I believe in you, and so does Jesus. Thank you.
Well, Jamie, thank you so much for sharing, and you can see why I was really excited to have Jamie share, because I knew there was a message that is baked in to Satellite that a lot of us in this room who are excited about nerd ministry need to hear. And I'm guessing for some of us, it's an encouragement and a path forward, and for some of us, some of the stuff, Jamie, that you even shared here felt for some of us to be a little overwhelming. And I suspect that in a why. It was a deep encouragement to me as somebody who does not do a great job at going back to his support base and saying, look what you've done. That early on we did that, but as we started to see more stories, I stopped sharing those stories as frequently. And it's very easy to get bottled up in the ministry and doing the thing and never sharing with the people that are helping that thing happen or enabling that thing to happen. So
Can I share an honest fear?
yeah.
An honest fear is that one of my donors that I haven't thanked in 6 months is listening to this going, you forgot me. So I struggle with it too. I just want to share that.
So, but let me ask you this. I mean, you have 2 kids. You're running a ministry that's now in multiple states, right? You travel a good bit, and yet you're still finding the ability in all of that to carve out the time to minister to the people that are enabling you guys to make Satellite what it is. How do you prioritize your time on a weekly basis to ensure that you're not forgetting the blacksmith?
Yeah, I love that question. And there's actually, if you look up how often or how much an executive director should spend their time fundraising, it's like 50%. And I think some people hear that and like, you're doing that 50%. Guess what I'm doing? I'm talking ministry. I'm talking about the work. I'm talking about the fruit. I'm hanging out with people. And it sounds intimidating, but once you get into it, it's really, really fun. Because stories like this that were reproduced with this text, I'm like, yes, I will make time to have coffee with that person, whether they responded with that text or not. So it just becomes a natural part of our ministry. But part of why I'm able to do that, you said, how do I find that balance? Well, first of all, I think balance is kind of a myth. I think balancing is this constant thing that we're doing. And when you feel like you start getting it, you start to weeble and then wobble a little bit. But we have a team of people that can do the hands-on things that I used to do. And they know that when I'm sitting down having coffee with this person or that person, that like I'm doing that so that people in our ministry can continue to do what they do, and that is be with kids 30 hours a week. So building a team around you is probably the biggest thing, but it's like, well, how do I build a team if I don't have support? Well, take care of, I'm telling you, this is just the parable of the talents, right? Take care of the 1, 2, 3, 5 donors that you have right now with absolute care. And I believe that'll multiply, and eventually you'll have the opportunity to do that.
Well, I mean, all pastors are realistically fundraising all the time, every Sunday for most of them. But fundraising has been a major part of our story and our journey. I mean, we had to raise just for total blunt honesty here, if you're thinking like, I'd like to get into this ministry and I got to figure it out. I mean, we had to raise nearly $300,000 in order to get what we were doing off the ground. And we've continued to raise after that. And my entire staff, between myself, Andy, and Dalton, all are continually raising and connecting with the people who are supporting our church or supporting us individually to enable us to do what we're doing. And I think, Jamie, one of the things that I love about Satellite is you really do help people to count the cost and to say, listen, if you don't feel like you can, this is going to be hard if you don't feel like you can ever have a passion to minister to the people that are supporting you and make this something that you not only want to do, you enjoy doing. And is it hard at first? Yes, it's absolutely hard to step into those funding conversations. I love some of your stuff about story and making sure that we're saying the story in the right way so that people can actually follow us. And amen, anybody here has been like, you met another D&D player and 20 minutes into the conversation, you're still hearing about their character's backstory that you're not even in a game with? And you're like, bro, shut up, right? Like, we can even do that to ourselves, and it happens much faster when you're talking to somebody who has no idea what you're talking about. So just practically speaking, is this just something that comes naturally to you, or have you had to really work at using the right language?
Yeah, actually, I think it goes back to how a lot of us spent our childhood. I was on sports teams. I competed in sports most of my life. I was very involved with my local community, and I played video games my whole life, but I didn't start competing with it till I was like 15, 16 years old. And I learned when I'm on a baseball team, I sat in the dugout with my teammates, and I got yelled at by my coaches when I said something stupid, and I got mentored by them, and I was around them. This is part of why we built Satellite Gaming, because kids need to have those interactions, because they need to know, what it's like to talk to people when they're not on a headset. It's different. And it may change over time as nerds begin to take over the world. Maybe in 30 years, it'll be different. But right now, the people that we're trying to invite to partner with us are probably a little older than us, and they grew up in a dugout. They knew what it was like to have a casual conversation and cheer for their friends in a way that all made sense. So I think that it was instilled in me at a young age because of a lot of my experiences. And for those of us that don't go to things like Rotary or Chamber of Commerce, I don't like going to those things. I think they're super boring. But I go to them because it helps me be with the normies. And it helps me understand that, like, I'm going from this world to that world, and I need to come back to this world to tell them how it's going. So some of it comes naturally. I have a background in sales and marketing, so that kind of helps. I don't think that it's about sales. I think what I learned from doing sales was, like, if I'd said something weird, that person was not buying a product and I was not getting a paycheck. I'm going to say less weird things now. Like, it's just, you got to learn that way. And that's what taught me anyway.
This idea of going to Chamber and Commerce and Rotary in our community is, but it's so powerful. Like, hey, like, break out, like, okay, I have something I felt like I was supposed to say. Do I have your permission to say it? That it
Let it rip.
Yeah, I usually don't try to do any of, like, my own thing here, but just for a moment. A lot of us who come out of gaming and nerd culture, we come out being ostracized and misunderstood. And we get a rise out of confusing people. We like it when people don't understand what we're talking about because it makes us feel better about ourselves. Yeah. If you are going to harbor bitterness and unforgiveness in your heart, God won't fund the ministry he's placed on your heart. Until you can forgive the people who have ostracized you and learn to work with them and beside them because they're your brothers and sisters in Christ, you're always going to have a hard time funding the thing that God has placed on your heart.
That's really hard to do.
Yeah.
But it's very, very important.
You got to love the lady who hates gaming. You got to love her enough to meet with her, to care for her, even if she doesn't understand exactly what you're doing. And to have her to partner with you, but not just to partner with you, to be part of what is going on. Jamie, tell me just a little bit about your time invested in just relationships. My friend Matt Geppert always said that all resource flows along the vein of relationship. And so I just feel like you are just a guy, man, who just builds tons and tons and tons of relationships and invests deeply in those things. Talk to me just a little bit about the importance of really genuine relationships inside of your ministry.
Yeah, I am a fan of relationship. I think we all are in various ways. I tend to be drawn to people that disagree with me more than people that agree with me. And what I mean by that is I could have a 5-minute conversation with Mark about Raid Shadow Legends. And he might be like, bro, you're cringy, but at least it would be like, okay, he gets it, cool, I can move on. But if I try to talk about that to a normie, right? It's going to result in a long conversation of me explaining things. And if there are times where I do try to explain games to people, right? So what I need to realize is if I'm going to talk to Mark for 5 minutes, we're going to get stuff done because we're already friends, we're tight. But if I'm going to meet with somebody that I don't know very well, I might spend an hour with them. So the less I know someone, the more I want to spend time with them. If that makes sense? And when I speak at places, I will often, usually in settings where I'm talking to parents, how many of you absolutely despise video games? And about 90% of the room will raise their hand. By the end of it, I ask the same question. And I say, okay, you, and you, those are the people I want to have coffee with. The people that after hearing me for an hour and a half still have a problem with video games. You know why? Because they probably know something I don't. I think too often we think like, oh, it's because they're the dumb ones. What if they're not? What if they're ones that have a really good perspective you haven't heard yet?
Appreciate that. I'm going to open it up. Anybody have a question you'd like to ask Jamie? Feel free. Yeah, Mika. First step in research, starting a program like what you're doing.
Yeah. I think for us, it was like practically, if you want to serve in a school, start an after-school program at a school, be present in the school. Like find out, do they need volunteers for like field trips? Do they need adults to be in the kitchen just to be adults, so we know, hey, more adults are in the building, the more we know kids are safe. Schools have a lot of needs. Now, you can't just go in like a weirdo and be like, I've got tacos for kids. Like, that's kind of weird. It used to happen. Literally, I could walk into a high school. All I'd have to do is have a background check and I'd be like, yo, I brought a bag of tacos. I'm going to meet some kids today. They'd be like, all right, cool. I would do that. That's how I met kids for like a decade. You don't do that anymore. So it's find out practical ways that you can be present in this school. And I actually think if you want to start a program in a school in fall of, it's 2024? Yeah.
Yeah, this is 2024.
Okay, cool. So in fall of 25, you need to go into that school no later than January of 25. Like, you need to be present in that school for 6 months before you think you have a quote-unquote right to run a club in that school. There's grant funding available. 21st Century Grant, that's available to a lot of people that are doing ministry or nonprofit work in impoverished communities. 21st Century Grant, that's a great one to go after. And there's a lot of churches that might have that. If you look up 21st Century Grant in your community and you know that, like, oh, Boys and Girls Club has access to that community, run your club through Boys and Girls Club. This is a hot take. I'm a man of hot takes. You've been around me for 5 minutes, you know that. I think one of the most important things you need to ask yourself if you're going to do this is, do you need to start it on your own, or do you just come under somebody that's already doing it? A lot of us really want to start our own thing. The reason Susie did that, I did that, Mark did that, Bubba did that, is because 8 years ago, nobody else was doing it, so we had to. So now there's a whole lot of people doing it. And guess what? I'm just going to say it. Sometimes running a nonprofit really sucks. And if you try to start your own thing, you're going to find that out, okay? Don't start it on your own if you don't have to. And I'm not saying, good, come to me. But really, if you want to come talk to me about it, I'd love to tell you more. We have a card. Just take my card off the Satellite Gaming table and reach out to me.
Yeah, and as somebody who filed and signed his 990 wrong 3 times this week in between things, can I just say being a nonprofit sucks. So yeah, I feel that. Can't wait to wire the money for that filing. Anybody else got a question? Wait, there's over here. Okay, go ahead. Yes. So the question was, do you see something like Satellite being able to expand it digitally into homeschool settings?
Yeah, we've done it. It's, yes, 100%. It's a very big need. It's a very big desire. And we've done several things that make it work. Little plug here. With LTM, we're doing this thing called Minecraft Creative League. And we've done that with homeschool students before, where basically they get a theme each week, they get a build. And if it's in a Christian space, we say, hey, this week you're building the temple to scale. And it's actually like really cool. So there's a lot of really cool ways you can provide that for homeschool communities. And again, reach out to me, because that's something I'm really passionate about. I think homeschool kids, they need community more than a lot of kids. And I think that's a really cool way to make it happen.
Awesome. Booch, you had your hand up. Yeah, so the question is basically, man, you gave us this round table, your base of money supporters, your base of prayer supporters, your mentors, the people you're mentoring, all of those sorts of things. What if I am in a situation right now where I have a small to medium-sized stream, talking about Jesus on that stream, connecting with people, but I don't have any of these tables made that are supporting me? What's the best place for me to start?
A prayer team. That's where you start. I want to share that, yes, I am talking of this more to say, like, hey, this is possible, guys. We can do this. I started doing ministry when I was 18. When I was like 5, I started helping any way I could, right? But I grew up in a church. I started doing ministry in terms of like having an actual role at a church from 18, and it's been going on ever since. So from 18 till I was 30 years old, I did not do it full time. So I had 12 years of beating my head against a wall saying like, Lord, how do I do this? How do I do this? How do I make it happen? So here's what I'll say. Also, you're talking about streaming. I often tell people like, I'm not a content creator. I'm not a streamer, so I can't relate. I went ahead and pulled this up to make sure I wasn't wrong. I have done content creation. I did make a YouTube video that had 176,000 views. I do have several videos that have more than 10K views. I did make a few $100s a month live streaming for like 6 months, okay? So I have done this. I've not done it to the scale of a lot of you, but I do have experience in that. Here's what I would say. I think, and this is going to be, I think, one to pray about and one to talk to others about. Don't just take my word for it. But if we as Christians want to go live stream as Christian streamers, we need to have an honest conversation with ourselves about supply and demand. Okay? I'm not talking about what God can supply. I'm not talking about that. But if your goal is to be a Christian streamer and make a full-time living as a branded Christian streamer and not do any support raising, go ahead and ask Susie about how that's going to go. Okay? Somebody who's been doing it for 10 years, okay? Seriously, like, I know, but like, you know what I mean? Like that's going to be really, really hard. I think I don't think there's anything wrong, and I think there's something beautiful about being somebody who streams to an audience of 10 to 20 people, 5 people, 3 people, 1 person. I think it's amazing, and I think it's beautiful. If you want to do that in a full-time, sustainable way, you have to figure out how to raise support, or you need to live a very, very low-income lifestyle. I think that's something we need to be honest with ourselves about. Is there social entrepreneurship? There's a book called The Art of Social Enterprise, and it is the idea of like when coffee shops, they sell coffee to make money to support their nonprofit. That's like what Susie is doing with live streaming, right? It's social enterprise. I'm doing a work that people normally do for profit, but I'm using it to fund ministry. There is social enterprise in this, but what we need to ask ourselves is what percentage of our livelihood is going to be funded by social enterprise? That would be subscribers, donations, like ads, etc. And what percentage of that is going to be funded by donations? If you're going to be branded as a Christian streamer, the higher percentage is probably going to be support raising, and the lower percentage is going to be social enterprise.
That's really great. I'm going to come back to that in a minute. I want to emphasize this a little bit. Like, there are people in this room for all of those paths forward, right? If you want to count the cost of what it takes to make your living off of streaming and sponsorships, go and talk to Matt. Like, in many ways, Matt has been the golden standard in the community of Christian streamers and creators. Like, many, many people have looked to Matt and said, I want to do that, right? But there are those who are also in this room, and you're like, no, I think I would like to raise my support to do that. Like, go talk to Reliant. Come talk to Jamie. Like, come talk to people who have gone and they've said, hey, I love what you're doing, but I'll be perfectly honest, I watched Matt for a long time, and when I was considering Lux, I said, I want to stream a little bit, but I don't want to do that. and I love what Matt is doing, but I can be, as his brother, I can just say in all honesty, I was like, I am going to go spend 9 months asking people to support me because I don't want to, like, I love Matt, and I love what he's doing, and I think he has a unique calling to it, and it's a blessing, but just don't get pigeonholed into thinking that there is only one avenue forward towards supporting and funding your ministry. If you want to ask about, like, hey, I don't want to just do it through sponsorships and this, I want to look at multiple streams of income, go talk to Ryan. Like, Ryan is doing that right now. Like, he's working on going full-time in creation through social enterprise right now, but he's doing that through a multitude of streams of income that are coming from a whole bunch of different places. He's leveraging his skill set to be able to do that. If you want to know how to do that, like, go talk to Ryan. He's living that life right now. And all of us will let you know, here's what the cost is. Because it's not just a, hey, here's the plan, now go and do it. We're also going to tell you what the emotional tool is, what the mental cost is. We're going to communicate to you, there's a cost that you're going to have to pay, and we want you to be able to accurately pay, count that cost before you start building the foundation, and you can never put a roof on it. And like that's all of our hearts who are doing what we're doing right now. Okay, yeah, go ahead.
So you used to be a youth pastor. If you were to go back and talk to your youth pastor self who was younger, what would you encourage them to do to fulfill that? Like, if that was where you were going to be staying, what would you encourage them to do?
Yeah, so the question was, Jamie, if you were a youth pastor, go back, which our youth pastor friend in the room, right? He's a youth pastor, so he's asking this from really where he is, I'm sure, right? Like, if you're going to go back to yourself as a youth pastor, what would you say today?
Get ready for Fortnite.
That's very funny.
Yeah. No, so seriously, what would I do? I love that. And I think it would be, I think it would be, take the relationship that you have with people in person. This is just me. This is what I would say. I'm sure there's people who say something different. I would say to myself, hey, you know how you're doing that in-person stuff? And you know how you're playing video games and building extracurricular programs and it's in public schools? Keep doing that, because there are going to be a lot of people doing other things, and those things need to happen. But I wouldn't have even started live streaming, because I would have seen what everyone else is doing and be like, sweet, that box is covered. What else does the church need to do? That's what I would have done. I probably would have not gone that route, because again, it wasn't my skill set. It wasn't where I felt called. I'll be honest. I think at times it was because I wanted to see numbers grow. That's why I play Raid. I want to see numbers grow. That's why I dabbled with live streaming. That's why I used to be really involved with social media. I like seeing numbers grow. I let my ego get to me. So if you ever see me on social media, just be like, you doing all right? Yeah. So that's what I would say. I would say lose the ego. Focus on what God called you to.
Awesome. We got time for one more. We got one more question in the room. Oh my gosh, Jamie, you answered all the questions.
I don't know that I answered them.
That's awesome. Hey, can we give Jamie a round of applause? Thank you so much for sharing with us, brother. I'll take that. Hey, we got a couple orders of business as we get ready for the end of the day, and a couple of things real quickly. First of all, I want to go over the breakouts that we're going to have this afternoon. Once again, lunch until 2. Come back for breakouts. The first one is going to be the Imladris meet and greet. Where's our friends from Imladris who are in the room? Awesome. Yeah, Magnus is here with us. Magnet works and has worked for a really long time with Riot. If you were here last year, you probably got to geek out with the rest of us. Listen to him talk about what he's had the chance to do over at Riot. And so he's going to be over there with Jeff. Is Jeff in here as well? Not yet. He'll be here. He'll be here by 2. There's going to be a little meet and greet, and they're going to be talking about what Imladris, which is really, it's a coalition and a network of believers who are inside of video game development. And they have their own conference and stuff. It's so freaking cool to have them here with us and partnering with what we're doing at Nerd Culture Ministry Summit. So if you just want to geek out and hang out with someone who's probably built some of your favorite champions, or if you want to go and learn more about that world of video game development and how faith can interact with that, go check that out. And that's going to be in the Oaks, the first one that you come to. The one clean up at the top of the hill at Glenview is going to be a roundtable on youth ministry, talking more about what Jamie just talked about. And that is going to be Crossfire and Steve from SafePoint, who are going to be leading those roundtables, sit around, swap ideas, talk about what you're doing in your own ministry, how we use gaming to reach youth, and then D&D as ministry. So if you've played some D&D or you love Dungeons and Dragons and you want to know what does it look like to actually build this thing out so that we can reach people that have largely been straight up kicked out of church or asked to change their shirt when they came to church, Giles and I are going to be hanging out in the top of Cedar Ridge, and we're going to be talking about both what he is doing with Dungeons and Dragons and how he's crafting this to work with churches and with youth ministries and enabling people to experience biblical stories and narratives around the table role-playing, which is freaking dope, along with a system that he has custom made that can go into your church. If your pastor's like, Dungeons and Dragons is for the devil, then he has made something that is entirely free that you can use to bring into your church. You don't have to say the words Dungeons and Dragons. If you want to hear what we're doing at Lux with our West Marches campaign that's enabling us to meet people where they are and simply pray for them, I'll tell you how you could build out a D&D ministry inside of your community, digitally or physically, that could reach dozens and dozens of people every week, getting them around the gaming table and giving us a chance to minister to people who previously never thought they would ever step back through the doors of a church. After this, there's also a hangout here for Checkpoint Church. It's going to be happening in this room starting at 2 o'clock. So if you're with the Checkpoint family time, that's going to be going on starting at 2 here. A reminder that tonight, D&D all the way up at the top of the hill. The next one down at Cedar Ridge is going to be board games. And I want to encourage you, please, if you have not stopped by today yet, to go to Gilded Greylands. I almost said Greyhaven Games. Gilded Greylands, please stop by there today. They may not be here tomorrow morning, so if you want to check out the board games they have for sale, you want to pick something up to take home with you, please, please, please go to the bottom floor of Gilded Greylands. I got you, Nate, 1 second. And check out their shop there and pick something up.
Digital make another soft offer. I did the Discord, but at about 3:30, so in between the two breakouts, we'll be offering communion in the space at Checkpoint. So even if you aren't part of Checkpoint, feel free to stop by. If you aren't comfortable receiving communion from us, a blessing is just fine. Just wanted to make that offer open to everyone.
Okay, yeah, Nate said if you want to come up with Checkpoint and receive communion today at 3:30, they're going to be doing it up here in this room. And then also the last one down at the Oaks, we of course have the video game LAN there this evening. A couple of other last minute things before we leave. One, we're going to do the giveaway in a moment, but when we get ready to leave today, we would love for social media for NCMS, if we could get a picture. If you have a booth out here, we'd love to get a picture of you at that booth at some point today, preferably just shortly after our gathering here. Lastly, whenever we leave and head to lunch, we're going to gather, if you want to, optional, right outside the main doors of the castle for a group picture. So if you'd like to be part of that, if you're terrified of group pictures, you don't have to be. There's no pressure. But if you would like to be part of that group picture, we're just going to be gathering outside the front doors of the castle right after our time here in the Great Hall. And did I hit everything? Did I knock it? Did I 1, 2, 3, 4 knock them all down? I remembered everything? Ha ha! Okay, we have a giveaway. So Zach is going to pick it. We have a giveaway. Oh, I forgot thank yous. We're going to do that in a minute. We're going to do that, the giveaway, and then we're going to do a couple of quick thank yous. Okay. Wow. A lot of you guys visited ministry booths. I'm going to mix these all up. You're doing such a good job holding this bin. Okay, I got one right here. Okay, so the winner of the ministry pass is Kevin Young. Where you at, Kevin? Kevin Young. Kevin Young's our winner. Kevin Young. See St. Bear, he has your prize. Congratulations. Listen, although NCMS isn't over, it is our last time all together in the same room. So I just want to say a couple of quick thank yous, and I'm going to say them all, and then we can clap, so you don't have to clap 9 times, okay? So really quickly, I just want to thank the crew at Love Thy Nerd who helped us put all of this stuff together and make it happen. I want to thank you for my staff at Lux Digital Church who have been running and gunning, putting up cameras, running worship, putting slides together, running live streams. You guys have worked endlessly, and so I really appreciate you. I want to thank Ryan up here, who's been in the back cutting portions of our streams and recordings and live uploading them over to multiple platforms. If you want to know how to take a lot of, what do you call it, times at bat? More times at bat. You can learn it like live because he did it here at NCMS, and our presence on socials has grown a ton over the last 2 days because of the work that Ryan has done. So thank you to Ryan. I want to thank the Castle staff who has just been absolutely incredible, and so incredibly gracious and welcoming to us. Listen, there's a lot of venues that would have us once for the money and not back again. And so because they're like, I don't know, there's some nerds in that. No, I'm not trying to have them back. But the Castle has been nothing but gracious, really wants us back. So thank you to them. Thank you to Zach, who is just the heart and the soul behind Megazord and NCMS. Works day in, day out to put it together. Thank you to Ice Puddle or Sam, who has been our fearless administrator and made sure you had rooms to sleep in and that everything was taken care of. And then finally, thank you to our sponsors who have made Nerd Culture Ministry Summit a possibility. And that is the last one, so now you can clap. There you go. And with all of that being said, this adjourns NCMS's main morning sessions. We'll see you for breakouts in a couple of hours. Go take a picture with us and go to lunch, and we'll see you at 2 o'clock. Oh, I forgot to tell. Yeah, I was like promising you 2025 info. Okay, really quickly, 2025 NCMS, like we said before, is going to be gathered at Exponential West, which I said was Southern California is a lie. I don't know where anything is on a map. It's actually like central to Northern California. San Francisco. You can sign up for that today, but keep an eye out because we're going to be posting more about that in early 2025. The next thing is there will not be a gathering just like this one in 2025. We are going to be pivoting and moving Nerd Culture Ministry Summit. Our next one is going to be in spring of 2026. Let me give you the two reasons for that. One, this is a major conference season for all churches, and our heart is to bring pastors in from all across the country so they can catch the heart for the nerds in their churches and in their communities. And many pastors are already at 5 conferences in the fall, so we want to free up time and space for them to be able to come. The next thing is this is a major board game conference season as well, and our friends at Love Thy Nerd are tirelessly trying to be at Essen and all of these other things. Yes, while we're also planning NCMS, we want to give them the breathing room as well so that we can make sure we can pour all the time and energy into future ones. So keep your eye on what we're doing on socials. We'll be at we'll be at Exponential West next fall in October, and then we will have the next formal Nerd Culture Ministry Summit like this in the spring of 2026. That's it. We love y'all. Go to lunch.